If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description.
Chapter 61, Lapras, Sing Your Song. It's Johan sensei. And there's also the Royal Masked Man. Wow, are these two really giving us a tactics class? The students buzzed with excitement as Johan and Kukui stepped onto the stage, introduced by Dove. Both of them were well-known figures, and their presence caused quite a stir among the first-year battle students who had gathered for a routine tactics class. Many students whipped out their phones to record the lesson, while others eagerly messaged friends or posted updates on the campus forums. Before long, students from the second, third, and even fourth years began pouring into the lecture hall, ditching games, dates, and even skipping classes to attend. Johan sensei. Down in the audience, Stephen, Roxanne, and Flannery looked surprised to see him, but they quickly focused up, knowing that Johan's tactics were not to be missed, even if not directly adopted. All right, you two, prepare your Pokémon, Dove announced, acting as the referee. Go. Kukui tossed a red and white Pokeball, and an orange, hefty Pokémon appeared on the field. Oh. It was none other than a Dragonite, the pseudo-legendary Pokémon from the Kanto region. In reality, Dragonite looked even rounder than one might imagine, especially with that chubby belly, which practically begged to be patted. A Dragonite! Come on, that's not fair, Royal Masked Man. But Dragonite is so adorable. Seeing Kukui's choice of Pokémon, Johan's expression turned a bit odd, but he released his own carefully chosen Pokémon. Woohoo! Appearing in front of Johan was a Lapras, with a tough shell on its back and a serene blue color. Is this a preview of Lance vs Lorelei? Or maybe a lesson for Lorelei on how to handle Lance? Johan thought to himself. It's not the protect toxic strategy. Lapras. Ice-type attacks are 4 times effective against Dragonite. This is in the bag for Johan sensei. Even I could do this. With Dragonite's 4-time ice weakness, strategy seemed almost unnecessary, just brute force with ice-type moves would do. Despite this, Kukui looked confident, and his confidence seemed to inspire Dragonite, who sharpened its gaze despite its plump appearance. Oh. Omega. Begin the battle. Dragonite, safeguard. Kukui took the initiative. Clearly, Kukui was worried about Johan's protect toxic strategy, so he chose Dragonite, who could use safeguard to avoid many potential problems. Even though Johan was using Lapras this time, Kukui opted for caution. After all, frozen status could also be troublesome. Seeing this, Johan smiled and gave a simple command. Lapras, Ice Beam. The students were not wrong. When you have a 4-time effectiveness, what else is there to do but charge ahead? Woohoo! Lapras launched a pale blue, chilling beam from its mouth. But Kukui had anticipated this and grinned. He made a broad, sweeping motion with his hand. Dragonite, use extreme speed to dodge. In an instant, Dragonite's body was enveloped in a radiant white glow as it flapped its wings hard, dramatically increasing its speed. Dragonite narrowly dodged the ice beam, only allowing its tail to graze the edge. The move Extreme Speed has a high priority, granting Dragonite a massive speed boost. There are stories of Dragonite being able to circle the globe in 16 hours, most likely with extreme speed at its disposal. If Dragonite and Kukui had the same level of synergy as Lance's Dragonite, perhaps it truly could dodge Ice Beam perfectly. Plus, with Safeguard in effect, the frost that had grazed Dragonite's tail quickly melted away. More importantly, Dragonite suddenly pulled out an apple with a bite taken out of it, rubbed it on itself, and took a hearty chomp. It was holding the item leftovers. Dragonite regained a small amount of health. Johan had always wondered, whose leftovers are those? Why are they so effective? He really dodged it. Dragonite's way faster than Lapras. Where's that guy who said even I could do this? Students in the audience couldn't help but find the match increasingly interesting. Johan sensei, type advantages don't determine everything, Kukui laughed confidently, his eyes sharpening. Now it's our turn. Dragonite, use Thunder Punch. Johan sighed inwardly. It seems we'll have to play like this after all. Lapras, sing your song, Parish Song. Woohoo! A melodious, ethereal tune echoed from Lapras, like the gentle flow of a mountain stream. Dragonite's plump body visibly shuddered. Kukui frowned. In reality, Parish Song works by creating a special frequency of air vibrations that invoke fear deep within the target's mind. As the fear takes root and spreads, the affected Pokémon gradually loses its will to battle. The battle had now turned into a race against time. Perish Song, is this a new strategy? Isn't that a mutual defeat move? ZZZZZT. Dragonite's Thunder Punch struck Lapras mid-song. Woohoo! Lapras let out a pained cry. Dragonite, one more time! Kukui commanded. Buzz! But a faint green barrier enveloped Lapras. Protect! However, Dragonite's thunder-infused fist shattered the shield with a mighty punch. Kukui's eyes flashed with determination. Now's the moment! Outrage! Dragonite's eyes turned bloodshot as dark red energy swirled around it. It went berserk, slashing wildly at Lapras. Kukui was exploiting the lowered success rate of using Protect consecutively, betting that Johan would follow the common Protect tactic. Although Outrage would leave Dragonite in a confused state afterward, it would also break through Lapras's substitute, exploiting its speed advantage to land the final blow before Lapras could protect again. But Johan calmly instructed. Lapras, go to sleep. Rest. This Lapras had the shell armor ability, preventing critical hits. And Johan equipped it with the item Focus Sash, ensuring it wouldn't be knocked out in one hit while at full health. Using Rest, Lapras would completely restore its HP. So even if Kukui had successfully exploited the gap between Protects, Lapras would still outlast him. Because even with Perish Song affecting both, Dragonite's higher speed and larger, more aggressive movements would cause it to succumb first. Moreover, Lapras also knew the move Sleep Talk, allowing it to successfully use Protect once more while asleep. For a moment, the entire lecture hall was dead silent. A few minutes later, Dragonite's berserk rage from Outrage subsided, but its heart was now full of fear. With a heavy thud, Dragonite plopped down, having lost its will to fight. Oh! The winner is Johan Sensei. Dove, a bit slow to react, finally announced the result. And in an instant, the crowd erupted into cheers. The Royal Masked Man had shown great skill, commanding Dragonite to dodge Ice Beam with extreme speed, shifting from a defensive to an offensive position. He had even successfully exploited the vulnerability in Protect. But in the end, Johan's strategy was just too resilient. That was so dirty. Hey, who's got a video of this? Send it to me. I've got it. I need a battle partner right now who's up for it. Johan Sensei, what about in non-1v1 battles? How would this strategy work? After all, if a Pokémon hit by Perish Song was withdrawn, its effects would dissipate. As Johan returned Lapras to its ball, he chuckled lightly. Lapras can learn Whirlpool or Block. Oh crap! Another counter. I feel like I'm invincible now. Every battle's gonna be a trade. I hereby declare Johan Sensei as the master of tactical dirty strategies. Johan stepped off the stage. Ghastly and Alolan Vulpix rushed up to him immediately. Oh! Alolan Vulpix's eyes were filled with admiration. So this is what an ice-type battle is like. Johan picked up Alolan Vulpix and looked at Ghastly. Don't worry, this will also be one of your future strategic reserves. Caw. Ghastly was about to cheer excitedly when its body suddenly shook. Its tongue rolled out, bringing with it a phone covered in drool. Johan accepted the phone with a twitch of his lips, seeing a friend request notification. King of the land, please approve me. He casually pressed reject. Good thing I set up a screening process. Who has the guts to call themselves the king of the land? While saying this, Johan subtly wiped his hand on Alolan Vulpix's fur. Alolan Vulpix. Chapter 62, A Fight Breaks Out. Kanto Region, Viridian City. Boss, why has Mewtwo gotten so much stronger? Sabrina pouted, her Kadabra by her side, looking displeased. When it came to psychic abilities, Sabrina had never accepted defeat. Even though her Pokémon was still just a Kadabra and had not yet evolved into an Alakazam, its psychic strength could rival, if not surpass, many fully evolved Alakazams. More importantly, as a true psychic herself, Sabrina could amplify Kadabra's power using her own abilities, allowing it to unleash even greater destructive force. That is, until she met Mewtwo. For the first time, Sabrina felt what it was like to be utterly overpowered in terms of psychic strength. But she wasn't willing to accept it. She kept thinking about how she could use her abilities to defeat Mewtwo. This was also why she wasn't overly concerned about evolving Kadabra until recently, when she started wanting it to evolve. Recently, an online Pokémon psychologist named Grain in the field had inspired her, causing Kadabra's psychic powers and even her own to grow significantly. Now she thought she could take on Mewtwo again. But when she tried, Mewtwo's power had become even more monstrous. And that's not even all of Mewtwo's power, Giovanni said calmly, stroking his Persian. Sabrina pursed her lips, knowing this was true. After all, Mewtwo was still wearing that armor designed to suppress its strength. Still, Sabrina, you've changed a lot recently. Giovanni's gaze shifted to Kadabra by Sabrina's side. As someone blessed by Viridian Forest and possessing the power of Viridian, Giovanni could clearly sense the changes in Sabrina and Kadabra. Have I? Sabrina looked at Kadabra. Kadabra forced a grin. Kadabra. All right, I guess. Sabrina shrugged. Recently, I met a Pokémon psychologist online named Grain in the field. Oh. Giovanni raised an eyebrow. Sabrina stretched lazily, her silhouette revealing a smooth, graceful curve. He seems pretty good at battle tactics too. Just beat Lance recently. She yawned, waving her hand dismissively. Boss, I'm going to bed. Kadabra and I have to cook later. It's exhausting trying to compete with Mewtwo's psychic powers. But the fact that sleeping and cooking could improve psychic powers, well, it was quite remarkable. Cooking? Giovanni's hand paused mid-stroke on Persian's fur, his brows furrowing. A coincidence? Or? Sir, it's true. Sabrina does seem a bit different, said his secretary, Domino, softly. Domino, is the database restored? Giovanni asked. And no, Domino stammered slightly, trying to explain. That, primarily, Porygon hasn't fully recovered from the Kaka attack, so. Try reaching out to this Grain in the field person, Giovanni instructed. Domino's pupil shrank. Boss, are you saying? Could he be connected to Mewtwo? Domino didn't press further, pulling out her phone to make the request. As Giovanni waited, Domino's fingers froze suddenly. Be boss. I got rejected. Giovanni. Hone region, Rustboro Pokémon Academy. Kaka. Ghastly tilted its head, confused, looking up at Johan. It's nothing. Just someone with a huge ego using an exaggerated nickname and failing to explain their issue. I declined. Recently, there had been many like this, so Johan had set his phone to vibrate mode, only allowing notifications from actual patients. Ghastly glanced at the phone sneakily. King of the land? Kaka. Whoa, that's quite the bold nickname. King of the land? Where does that leave Groudon? After Johan and Kukui stepped down, the stage was left to Dove once more. In truth, the parish song strategy, though considered dirty by some, wasn't an unknown technique. Plenty of people were aware of it and even tried to use it, the problem was that few could use it effectively. For instance, Agatha, who had given Johan the Dread Manual, was a prime example of a parish song user. However, Agatha's strategy was a far cry from Johan's. Her legions of ghost-type Pokémon were no joke, earning her the title of the Warlord Queen for a reason. Similarly, in the future, Kanto's Ice-type master would also become a proficient user of the parish song strategy, serving as a significant roadblock for Lance on his path to the championship. The thing about certain tactics is that knowing them is one thing, and executing them is another. Besides, strategies, dirty tricks, are flexible and varied. This isn't a game where each Pokémon can only have 4 moves, trying to copy strategies verbatim could lead to an embarrassing loss without understanding why. Backstage. Johan-sensei, I didn't expect you to use the parish song strategy, Kukui said with a helpless smile. Even with Dragonite's quadruple ice-type weakness, Kukui wasn't worried. As a pseudo-legendary Pokémon, Dragonite's inherent strengths covered many weaknesses. However, the parish song strategy took him by surprise, as few could execute it well. Johan chuckled softly. He had considered other options. Kukui would definitely be on guard against something as simple as Substitute Protect Toxic. Other moves like Spikes or Venoshock were not worth mentioning. Full defensive teams, sturdy Shedinja, these required more structure. Even something as solid as a weakness policy Sandstream Palas Sand was a gamble. As for Serene Grace Air/Flinches, Johan questioned his own luck. After all, he'd experienced 5 consecutive misses and 7 straight failures before. Plus, while the Academy had many teaching Pokémon, he couldn't just pick any random one and expect its moves and abilities to fit. Kukui was obviously strong, so the Perish Song strategy, which forced a one-for-one trade, was relatively reliable. And besides, with Mega Evolution not yet widely available, something like the Mega Glolly Explosion would have been ideal. Wait a minute. The thought suddenly struck Johan, if Lorelei knew about Mega Glolly Explosions, Lance might never be able to overcome that hurdle in his life. Johan-sensei, I have a request, Kukui said seriously. Johan was pulled from his thoughts. Please go ahead. If, and this is just an if, the Alola region ever establishes a Pokémon Academy, could we invite you to occasionally give a lecture? After a brief moment of hesitation, Johan nodded. If I have time, I wouldn't mind. After all, he was planning to visit the Alola region eventually due to Alolan Vulpix. If his schedule allowed, he wouldn't mind helping out. Plus, he was curious about that girl who once fished up a Phoebus with a fishing rod. That's fantastic. Kukui's face lit up with joy. For someone dedicated to developing Alola, he greatly valued the opportunity to have someone like Johan on board. However, there's something I'd like to ask for help with in return, Royal Masked Man. Oh. Kukui looked intrigued. Ghastly, take OOU out to play, but don't go too far. Johan put Alolan Vulpix on the ground. Caw. Ghastly grinned mischievously, while Alolan Vulpix hesitated. With Johan's encouraging look, Vulpix finally followed Ghastly away. Though Kukui looked curious, he remained silent and waited for Johan to speak. Well, it's like this. After choosing his words carefully, Johan briefly explained Alolan Vulpix's situation from beginning to end. After listening, Kukui frowned. Poaching? Or? In recent years, more and more people had been traveling to Alola, especially in the summer. However, without a unified league structure in Alola, certain issues were challenging to address comprehensively, despite their best efforts. If not for the island kahunas, who knows what kind of chaos might have ensued. Taking a deep breath, Kukui said gravely, I understand. Even if it weren't for Johan and Alolan Vulpix, Kukui would still strive to investigate this matter now that he was aware of it. Just then, a student rushed into the room. Johan-sensei, your Ghastly seems to be fighting with another Pokémon. Meanwhile, the video of Johan and Kukui's battle was spreading rapidly online. Chapter 63, Fighting for Milk? Below MT Silver Academy, Kanto region. In a dorm room adorned with cute cartoons and overflowing with a girlish vibe, a tall girl with shiny black stockings and a tight black skirt, wearing thin-framed glasses, was hugging a chubby Jigglypuff plushie, her face lit with girlish delight. Bam! Suddenly, the dorm door was flung open, and in walked another girl with long bluish-gray hair, wearing a yellow crop top and strutting in golden high heels. Lorelei, you should. The girl holding the plushie was none other than the future Kanto Elite Four member and Ice-type master, Lorelei. The bluish-gray-haired girl had just entered but stopped mid-sentence when she saw Lorelei's pale cheeks turn slightly pink as she hastily hid the Jigglypuff plushie behind her. Oh, stop hiding it, I saw it, the blue-haired girl teased playfully. Who would have thought that our cool Ice Queen actually has such a girly side? Lorelei coughed lightly, her expression gradually returning to its usual cold demeanor. Lyra, say what you came to say. So, the bluish-gray-haired girl was Lyra, the future Johto Elite Four Dark-type master. Lyra pouted in response. It's a shame no one else will see this side of you. Just check the league website. There's a Perish Song strategy that's really interesting. Perish Song. Lorelei raised an eyebrow as she reached for her tablet, wrapped in an EV-themed case. Not many people can use that strategy effectively. The only ones I know are Agatha. Opening the league website, she quickly found the video, which was rapidly gaining traction. Johan? This name sounds vaguely familiar. And the opponent is the Royal Masked Man. The Royal Masked Man was more well-known than Johan, especially since his skills were recognized by many top trainers. Curious, Lorelei started watching, her calm, icy eyes slowly revealing a look of surprise as the video progressed. Well? Lyra asked, crossing her legs and leaning on the table with a keen grin. Pretty interesting, hey? Lorelei, engrossed in the video, didn't respond immediately. After a while, she set the tablet down, her eyes flashing with contemplation as she murmured. Using Rest with Focus Sash, alternating substitute with protect, and opening with perish song if the strength gap isn't too large. TCH, dirty, isn't it? Lyra said, teasing. You use perish song too, but this one's on another level. Lorelei twirled a lock of hair between her fingers. It's got a bit of Agatha's touch to it, but it does fit Lapra's quite well. Lyra leaned in, lowering her voice. Aren't you going to take on that guy soon? Blackthorn City, Dragon's Den, Johto region. Let's land, Dragonite. Lance patted Dragonite, smiling. Dragonite had just recently evolved, so Lance had been training in Blackthorn City these past few days, not just for Dragonite, but for Aerodactyl too. What is it, Claire? Claire, a girl with light blue hair tied in a ponytail, wearing a fitted outfit accentuating her figure, and the future Blackthorn City gym leader, handed Lance a tablet. Look, Johan's video is up. Really? Lance's eyes lit up as he took the tablet. Big bro, I'd advise not to. But Claire spoke too late. Lance and Dragonite were already watching the video intensely. They watched the entire thing in one go. When they finished, Lance turned his head stiffly towards Dragonite. Rawr! Dragonite mumbled with a confused expression. Hone region, Rustboro Pokémon Academy. Ghastly getting into a fight with another Pokémon was the last thing Johan expected. Typically, while mischievous, Ghastly mostly liked to prank people within reason. It was surprising to see it actually engaging in a fight. So, Johan immediately followed the student who reported the incident. As per Johan's instructions, Ghastly and Vulpix hadn't gone far. They were near a wooded area behind the lecture hall. The Rustboro Academy's grounds were well maintained with ample greenery, which meant not only students' Pokémon but also the Academy's Pokémon and even some wild ones roamed the campus. The wild Pokémon on campus were usually mild-mannered and familiar with humans due to prolonged interaction with students and their Pokémon. But there are always exceptions. In the Rustboro Academy's small forest lived a group of Slaycoat and Vigoroth. They were known around campus as bullies, frequently teasing couples sneaking into the woods and pulling playful pranks on them. It was rumored that these Slaycoat and Vigoroth were left behind by a trainer who had once trained here. Over time, students jokingly dubbed the area the couple's burial woods. Or, more succinctly, the Forest of Love's Demise. When Johan arrived, he saw Ghastly facing off against two Vigoroth. Nearby, 4 or 5 Slaycoat were sprawled out in deep sleep. It was hard to tell whether they were naturally sleeping or if Ghastly had put them under. However, when Johan saw an empty Moo Moo milk bottle and Vulpix's teary eyes, he made a guess. It seemed likely that Ghastly had taken Vulpix for a stroll around the academy, showing it the grounds while enjoying some Moo Moo milk. But then, a couple of Vigoroth must have appeared, trying to steal their milk, leading to this showdown. A battle over milk? A war for Moo Moo milk? Come to think of it, Vigoroth, being a normal type with a vital spirit ability, did have an advantage over a ghost type like Ghastly that specialized in control moves. Vital Spirit prevents the Pokémon from falling asleep. Vigoo. Before Johan could get closer, one of the Vigoroth growled and charged at Ghastly with incredible speed. Ghastly, Smog, then use Toxic. Caw. Upon hearing Johan's command, Ghastly's eyes lit up with excitement. It released a thick cloud of purple smog, obscuring the Vigorota's vision, and then darted behind it. Sticking out its tongue mockingly, Ghastly spat out a glob of sticky, venomous liquid onto the Vigorota's back. Hey Tui! The second Vigoroth couldn't hold back any longer and lunged at Ghastly. Vulpix, use Confusion. Johan's footsteps gradually slowed. Oh. Vulpix's wide eyes glanced between Johan, Ghastly, and the approaching Vigoroth, unsure of what to do. You don't want to see Ghastly get hurt, right? Johan's voice was soft yet firm. Hearing this, Vulpix grew increasingly anxious, whimpering softly, clearly hesitant and conflicted. But as the Vigorota's claws closed in on Ghastly, Vulpix's expression shifted in an instant. Oh. A powerful psychic force erupted, sending both Vigoroth flying, the one hit with Toxic included. Caw. Watching the Vigoroth get flung away, Ghastly reminisced about its own experience not long ago. No, I definitely looked cooler when I got blasted away, it mused. What happened? Johan approached, frowning. Oh. Returning to its senses, Vulpix looked up at Johan with teary eyes, on the verge of crying. I couldn't put them to sleep. I couldn't put the Vigoroth to sleep. I'm not good enough, Vulpix seemed to be thinking. Johan raised an eyebrow at Vulpix's explanation. Perhaps the situation wasn't exactly as he had initially thought. Where are you going? Turning around, Johan caught Ghastly trying to sneak away. Ghastly jolted, freezing in its tracks, and turned back with an awkward grin, tongue lolling out. It uncurled its tongue to reveal a lumberry, slightly marred by claw marks. Caw. Want some? It tastes pretty good. Johan narrowed his eyes. Is that all? Caw. That's it. I swear. Not convinced, Johan grabbed Ghastly, ignoring the tingling sensation in his fingers from the contact, and turned it upside down. Caw. From Ghastly's mouth spilled 5 or 6 lumberries, 3 hairpins, 2 hats, 2 pens, and a couple of shed Vigoroth claws. Johan's eyes narrowed further. Are you a Ghastly or a Greedent? Grrrrrrr. Suddenly, a deeper, more intimidating roar echoed from within the forest. Chapter 64, A Knight's Heart. In the counseling room. Caw. Ghastly floated by the wall, grinning awkwardly. Despite its best efforts, it just couldn't manage to look serious. Johan was sitting there, holding Alolan Vulpix in his arms. His hand gently ruffled through Vulpix's soft, cool, and fluffy fur while silently eyeing Ghastly. Oh. Vulpix let out a purring sound, like a satisfied kitten, casting Ghastly an apologetic look. So, what's the story? Johan finally asked. Just a little while ago, Ghastly and Vulpix hadn't just put the already lazy Slaycoat into a deep sleep estimated to last 3 days, they also drove away several Vigoroth. They even managed to disturb the notorious Slaking, rumored not to have bathed in 3 years. If Slaking had come out, Johan wouldn't have known how to handle the situation. Now with the chance to explain, Ghastly began to babble eagerly. Caw. Listen to me. I have a totally reasonable explanation. It turned out Ghastly had taken Vulpix on a stroll around the area. They'd stumbled upon a couple of Vigoroth who were bullying 2 Academy Oddish by stealing their lumberries. Would it let that slide? No way. Ghastly stepped in to knock down 2 of them but was then chased by more Vigoroth. To make matters worse, the Vigoroth had also set their sights on the moo milk Ghastly and Vulpix were enjoying. One of the Vigoroth even struck Vulpix, causing it to cry out, which inadvertently put several Slaycoat into a deep sleep. But could Ghastly just sit back and let that happen? Absolutely not. It relayed its tale with impassioned indignation, almost like a hero defending the weak. After hearing it all, Johan pressed his lips together in thought before summarizing it all. So, basically, you went thief versus thief. Caw. Ghastly tried to protest further, but Johan had already made up his mind. He sighed, rubbing his temples. This is going downhill. Breaking and entering. Thief on thief action. Ghastly, you're getting deeper and deeper into the path of not-so-legal activities. As punishment, you're not playing on your phone tonight. Johan said firmly. Caw. Sigma, LLL. Ghastly looked like it had turned to stone. My Eevee. My Pikachu. My Poplio. And later, take some poke blocks to give to those Oddish, Johan added. Ghastly nodded dully, like its soul had left its body. Then, almost instinctively, it asked. Caw. What about the Vigoroth? Johan's eyes narrowed. Be glad we didn't escalate things with them. Picking on Vulpix? Next time you're bored, go play with them, Johan said with a hint of mischief in his voice. Caw. In the afternoon, Johan set up a training routine for Alolan Vulpix to practice controlling its psychic abilities. Although there were some unexpected hiccups, at least nobody got seriously hurt. Returning home that evening, Ghastly quietly slipped into a corner, trying to sneakily take out its phone. But it could feel a gaze burning into its back. Caw. It grinned awkwardly, pretending the phone was meant for Vulpix to play with. Oh. Vulpix looked puzzled. Ghastly stuffed the phone into Vulpix's paws. Caw. Tap here, tap there, that's right. Let's watch Poplio's adventure together. Alolan Vulpix tilted its head, utterly confused. Vulpix. Johan observed Ghastly's coaching from the side but only chuckled, deciding not to intervene. He had work of his own to handle. The battle video had, without a doubt, been posted online, and a lot of people were trying to add him as a friend. Some genuinely wanted to seek advice on their Pokémon's psychology, while others were simply curious or found it amusing. Like that king of the land from earlier. So, Johan needed to sift through the requests, filtering out those who had legitimate questions from those just wasting time. Even at this late hour, friend requests were trickling in. For instance, bird on the ground, what should I do if my Pokémon and I aren't close? That seemed like a reasonable question. Johan approved the request. Grain in the field, can you describe the situation? The response came quickly. Bird on the ground, my Pokémon is really strong, super strong. But I have trouble, connecting with them. This seems like a typical case of a trainer having a powerful Pokémon that's beyond their control, Johan thought, somewhat reminiscent of a certain Charizard. Speaking of which, is this world more akin to Reds or Ashes? That was something Johan hadn't figured out yet. He quickly refocused his mind. Generally, there were two approaches to this problem. A trainer could improve their skills and gain the Pokémon's respect through battles and victories. Alternatively, they could focus on strengthening the bond or friendship between them and their Pokémon. Given the person's situation, Johan recommended the latter approach. Grain in the field, are you able to communicate, or is communication itself an issue? Bird on the ground, we can communicate, but usually, it initiates most of our interactions. Using voice to text, maybe? The typos are common. But Johan didn't think too deeply about it. It couldn't possibly be another Mewtwo, right? The odds were too low. Grain in the field, my suggestion is to focus on establishing a friendship or partnership first, and set aside the roles of trainer and Pokémon for the time being. Bird on the ground, how do I do that? Grain in the field, whether it's a person or a Pokémon, winning their heart usually starts with winning their stomach. Team Rocket Base, Viridian City, Kanto region. In a dimly lit room, Madary clutched a tablet, her face glowing softly in the eerie light. She looked almost giddy. Winning their stomach. She peeked over at Giovanni, who was working intently. Sensing her gaze, Giovanni asked absent-mindedly without looking up, "Did you connect?" "Yes, sir." Madary replied, stiffening up. Giovanni paused, turning to face her. "What did he say?" Madary quickly dimmed the tablet's screen and answered, "I used an alternate account to add him. We're still in the initial stages of communication, and I can't confirm anything yet." Giovanni nodded, shifting his focus back to his files. "Start investigating his background." "Understood. His tactical skills are impressive, he might be worth recruiting." "Yes, sir." Time passed. Life continued with its usual rhythm of training challenges and moments of joy. Alolan Vulpix gradually gained control over its abilities, while Ghastly appeared to be growing stronger and more solid. Sometimes Johan would don the guise of Fivefold and take his two Pokémon to the battle restaurant in Rustboro City to enjoy a hearty meal and gain some battle experience. They began with the basic level restaurants where novice trainers frequented and eventually felt confident enough to challenge intermediate and even advanced level battle restaurants. After all, even losing a battle just meant paying a bill that Johan had already planned for. As a result, the name Fivefold started to become more recognized among the city's battle restaurants. Even the initially wary restaurant owners came to realize the commercial value. Fivefold drew a crowd, and by advertising his visits a day in advance, they could attract even more customers and aspiring trainers. The urban legend of Fivefold continued to grow. On this day, the Rustboro Pokémon Academy was celebrating its fall festival. The campus was decked out in festive decor, exuding a lively and cheerful atmosphere. Johan had donned a black suit, accented with golden trim at the cuffs and collar. He sported a monocle and carried a cane as he walked through the academy grounds. This suit was something he had splurged on, technically reimbursed, though he couldn't quite understand why the reimbursed attire had to be so lavish. Ghastly floated by, eagerly glancing around, its mouth stuffed with food, while Johan's wallet continued to grow lighter. Walking by his side, Alolan Vulpix trotted along, wide-eyed with curiosity, as if experiencing everything for the first time. Over time, Vulpix had become noticeably more sociable, no longer as shy as it once was. "Professor Johan, you look so dashing today." "Wow, Alolan Vulpix is so adorable." "Need more food, Ghastly? Want some more?" Johan was quite popular among the students these days. "Professor Johan, would you like to pick out some outfits for your Pokémon?" A female student dressed in a medieval evening gown called out from her shop, which sold Pokémon costumes. Johan blinked, a little surprised. Oh. Alolan Vulpix tilted its head, its eyes fixated on a Christmas-themed outfit inside the shop, its blue eyes sparkling with interest. Ghastly, on the other hand, stared blankly at a suit of knight's armor hanging on the wall, seemingly entranced. Noticing their reactions, Johan chuckled. If you like something, go ahead and choose. But Ghastly, I don't think the knight outfit is quite right for you. How about that mask instead? After all, Ghastly only had a head armor required at least a pair of arms. Caw. Ghastly muttered, but I have a knight's heart. Suddenly, Ghastly's body began to glow with a brilliant white light. Johan's expression froze. Wait, was it really evolving just for a costume? Chapter 65, Evolution, Haunter. Oh. Alolan Vulpix, Johan, and several students around them were all staring at Ghastly, now engulfed in bright light. Caw. Even Ghastly itself seemed a bit bewildered. Within the shining glow, Ghastly's form began to shift. Two arms gradually extended from its sides. The gaseous mist surrounding its body started to solidify, forming an eerie, spiky face on either side. Its once round, white eyes elongated into triangular slits, giving it a more sinister appearance. Black pupils now flickered with ghostly blue flames, and its previously small fangs turned into sharp, menacing ones. As the light faded, Ghastly's transformed shape fully emerged. No longer Ghastly, but now, Haunter. Caw. Haunter looked at its newly formed hands, moving them about, fascinated by its own changes. Its voice had also grown deeper and more resonant than before. Haunter, Johan called out with a grin. Caw. Haunter paused for a moment before realizing that Johan was addressing it. The newly evolved Pokémon happily narrowed its eyes and, sticking out its now larger tongue, darted toward Johan to give him a big, wet lick. Johan's expression instantly shifted as he hurriedly shouted, "Wait! This outfit is expensive! The saliva! Slurp! TSSS, that paralysis is even stronger!" He quickly bit into a cherry berry, its intense spiciness clearing the numbing sensation. Johan shot a half-annoyed look at Haunter, who snickered mischievously. He had every reason to suspect Haunter was paying him back for his earlier comment about the knight armor not suiting it. To be fair, Haunter's lick was evidently much more potent post-evolution. Johan, who had started getting used to Ghastly's lick after repeated practice, now found himself starting from scratch, actually, worse than before. But regardless, congratulations on evolving, Haunter. Despite his playful resentment, Johan couldn't hide his genuine joy. The feeling of seeing a Pokémon evolve after all the time and effort put in together was profoundly rewarding. The transformation might have been triggered by an unexpected reason, but the evolution itself was undeniably a culmination of all their hard work. Caw. Haunter blinked playfully, gesturing with its new hands. No biggie, piece of cake. It then winked at Alolan Vulpix, who was watching it with wide eyes. Haunter's eyes started glistening with tears, and it dramatically sniffled. Caw. It's been so hard, so very hard. Finally, I can pet Vulpix too. You have no idea how torturous it was to watch Johan pet Vulpix while I couldn't even touch it. Oh. Alolan Vulpix's eyes glowed faintly with psychic energy. Caw. Haunter quickly waved its hands in surrender. Kidding. Just kidding. Don't take it so seriously. As its gaze drifted toward the suit of knight's armor hanging on the wall, Johan couldn't help but twitch slightly. So this really was about that armor. A few minutes later, Alolan Vulpix was dressed in a stylish navy blue Christmas outfit, with the help of some female students who tied 6 light blue ribbons around its tails. Wow! So cute! Can I pet it? My heart, I can't take it. I'm dead. This is too much. The crowd that had initially gathered to watch Haunter's evolution was now swooning over the newly dressed Vulpix. It really does look great, Johan said, his eyes brightening with admiration. Oh. / Q. It's not that great. Bang, bang. Suddenly, from the direction of the shop's fitting room, a figure clad in deep purple armor, with a helmet that emitted a faint glow, came stomping out. When Johan saw this knightly figure emerge, he paused, muttering under his breath. Dark Inferno Knight. It wasn't an exact match, but there really was some resemblance. But the thing was, Haunter having arms made sense, it had claws, after all. But what was going on with those legs? Curious, Johan approached and gently kicked the armored legs. Clank, clank. Empty. So the leg armor is just hanging there? Haunter. But something felt off to Johan. Normally, Haunter should be smugly showing off and flaunting by now, right? Caca. I'm stuck. Help. Johan sighed deeply. I knew that big head of yours wouldn't fit inside a suit of armor. In the end, Johan continued strolling around the festival grounds with Vulpix, now in its new Christmas outfit, and Haunter, floating in midair wearing only half a suit of armor. Having hands had clearly made things easier for Haunter. It held an oversized ice cream in one hand, while the other hand held a spoon. To be clear, the spoon was for Vulpix, Haunter preferred to chomp directly. Before long, half the massive ice cream was gone. The festival had plenty of attractions. There were haunted houses, food stalls, pop-up shops, battle arenas, and more. Haunter had wanted to explore the haunted house, but Johan quickly pulled it away, fearing that Haunter might accidentally scare the staff and ruin the experience for everyone else. As they wandered, they eventually reached the battle zone. This area was just as lively and decorated as the rest of the festival, attracting students and teachers alike who were passionate about Pokémon battles. The festival's battle zone featured a variety of formats. There were traditional 1v1s, 3v3 arena matches, double battles, tower challenges, and even special events. Unlike other areas that were student-organized, the battle zone was managed by the Academy itself to prevent any potential issues. For added safety, the Academy even brought in Nurse Joy from the Pokémon Center. After all, Rustboro Academy was the largest Pokémon Academy in Hoenn, so they had enough clout to pull a few strings. And since it was Academy-sponsored, there were naturally prizes to motivate participants. Good evening, Nurse Joy. Having met her before, Johan greeted Nurse Joy at the medical station. Professor Johan. Nurse Joy's eyes lit up, and she covered her mouth with a chuckle. You look very handsome tonight. Thank you. Caca. Haunter saluted with its new claws, waving to Nurse Joy and her Chansey. Haunter? Did it evolve? Nurse Joy observed. Johan felt a bit awkward. At least she didn't ask how it evolved. That would be too embarrassing to explain. Oh. The timid Vulpix also gave Nurse Joy a soft greeting, showing its progress. Ah, Vulpix, you're so adorable. Lucky. Are you planning to participate in the tournament, Professor Johan? I heard the prizes this year are quite good, Nurse Joy asked. Prizes? Professor Johan. Just then, Stephen, dressed in his signature suit, approached them with a bright smile. I was looking for you earlier, but I just knew I'd find you here. What do you mean just knew? Johan thought. Haunter? You're ghastly evolved. Stephen noticed Haunter's armor, chuckling as he continued, when did this happen? While speaking, he also greeted Haunter and Vulpix warmly. Johan sighed inwardly. Ahem, let's change the topic. Stephen, did you enter the tournament yet? No, not yet. Stephen shook his head, smiling. But I know the Academy put a lot of effort into this. The final prize for the Tower Challenge is a set of elemental gems. Caca. Hearing this, Haunter's eyes gleamed with interest. Chapter 66, Haunter's Hunting Hour. Do you want that set of elemental gems? Seeing Haunter's excitement, Johan asked with a smile. Caca. Haunter scratched its head, the armor on its body making clinking noises as it shifted. The gems were secondary, Haunter was simply eager to battle and test its new abilities after evolving. Well then. Haunter had become clever, it was hard for Johan to discern its true motives. Or maybe, Haunter wanted both the battle and the reward. However, Johan also wanted to gauge Haunter's strength. It's said that Haunter is a dimensional creature, capable of slipping into other dimensions. Some trainers who owned Haunters often had them hide in their shadows as a form of protection. Agatha, one of the Elite Four, was particularly skilled in this technique. It's rumored that not even those close to her knew how many ghost-type Pokémon were hiding in her shadow. In this world of Pokémon, a trainer must always be vigilant. When facing opponents who specialize in wild, no-holds-barred battles or those skilled in ambush tactics, even the Elite Four could be caught off guard. From Johan's recollection, the most striking example of this was Gold from Pokémon Adventures. In normal battles, Gold often struggled, but when it came to no-holds-barred situations, his precision and stealth were terrifying. Then, of course, there's Agatha and Lance, though Lance is more of a cautionary tale. Now that Ghastly had evolved into Haunter, it was like having an extra layer of protection for Johan. Wanna give it a shot? Caw. Haunter let out a manic laugh, twirling its long tongue in excitement. It was hunting time. Hearing this, Steven's eyes lit up. Normally, he wasn't too interested in participating in school festival battles. But if Johan was joining, he couldn't help but get intrigued. However, to Steven's surprise, Johan didn't head towards the 1v1 or 2v2 arenas. Instead, he walked straight toward the tower climb zone, which had fewer people around. The tower climb zone is self-explanatory. Challengers had to progress through a series of increasingly difficult opponents, like climbing a tower. There were no breaks, and no healing items could be used in between battles. The higher a challenger climbed, the more rewards they earned at each stage. More importantly, with each stage, the opposing Pokémon would be slightly stronger than the previous ones. It was a test of both the trainer's strategy and their Pokémon's capabilities. Since the event was organized by the Academy, the opposing Pokémon were carefully selected to match the challenger's Pokémon strength. The early rounds wouldn't just consist of weak opponents. Caw. Haunter looked around at the relatively quiet area, puzzled, and turned to Johan for an explanation. Here? Holding Vulpix in his arms, Johan offered a simple reason. As a teacher, battling students wouldn't look good. People might think we're bullying them, especially some of those big baby-like opponents. Steven. Why did it sound like Johan was calling out specific people? Caw. Haunter nodded with understanding, having developed a good rapport with Johan. One thing was clear. Steven had his eye on them, so they were keeping a low profile. Before challenging, Johan needed to confirm Haunter's new moves after evolving. At Johan's direction, Haunter's eyes glowed faintly. In Johan's line of sight, Haunter's updated Pokédex entry appeared. While not many changes were immediately visible, Haunter had gained the move Shadow Punch. Of course, it was a physical move, and Haunter excelled in special attack, so Shadow Punch was mostly negligible. Still, the full extent of Haunter's evolution needed to be explored through further training and real battles. Professor Johan, climbing the tower. The bored-looking advisor of Class 2, Year 1 of the Battle Department, Isaiah, perked up with interest. She had previously worked in the Battle Frontiers Battle Factory, making her well-versed in various Pokémon and their capabilities. She was perfect for overseeing the tower climb zone. The two weren't close friends, but they were familiar enough as fellow faculty members to exchange more than a nod in passing. Professor Isaiah. Johan greeted her with a friendly nod. Don't expect me to hold back, Isaiah cautioned. Of course. Johan agreed easily. I just want to test Haunter's strength. It recently evolved. Isaiah seemed to understand. She clapped her hands on a button set in the wall of the tower climb zone. Boom. A large screen on the wall of the zone lit up, displaying a giant 0. The noise caught the attention of a few nearby students. Originally, they weren't very interested, but upon seeing Johan step up to the challenge, they became curious. Simultaneously, Isaiah held a Pokeball in her hand. Seeing that Haunter had only just evolved. Then the first opponent will be Beedrill. In a flash of red light, a Beedrill with sharp, needle-like forelimbs appeared on the field. Haunter, Johan called calmly. With its typing advantage, Haunter was in a good position. Caw. Haunter shed its knight armor and set it aside, grinning wildly with excitement. Finally, my time to shine. Bring it on. Beedrill, agility. Isaiah commanded, waving her hand decisively. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Drill's wings vibrated rapidly, its form flickering as it moved at high speeds, appearing at various corners of the battlefield. But neither Johan nor Haunter moved. Haunter's eyes kept following Drill's movements, trying to pinpoint its position. At the same time, Johan's line of sight revealed Drill's full Pokédex entry. The only Dark-type move it possessed was Payback. It had a fair amount of Bug and Poison-type moves, but Haunter, being part Poison itself, didn't need to worry about the Poison-type attacks. As for Bug-type moves, Haunter quadruple resisted them. Seeing Haunter's lack of movement, Isaiah frowned. It made things difficult for her. Beedrill, focus energy. Hypnosis. Just as Isaiah's command to focus was given and Beedrill stopped moving, Johan's order cut through the air. Caw-caw. Haunter let out a sharp cry. This caught Drill's attention for a split second. And that was all Haunter needed. Drill's once intense gaze softened, becoming foggy, and then drowsy. Haunter, Hex. Haunter's eyes turned blood red, the crimson glow reflecting within Drill's mind. Boom. An ominous, muffled explosion echoed from within Beedrill. It fell to the ground, fainting on the spot. Caw-caw. Next. Boom. The screen displayed 1 as the number 0 turned into 1. Isaiah recalled Beedrill, casting a contemplative look at both Haunter and Johan. Just a single hypnosis followed by Hex had taken down her Beedrill. While Beedrill was naturally a bit frail, this still indicated that Haunter's power wasn't to be underestimated. In that case, the second opponent will be Kingler. A Kingler with massive pincers materialized on the battlefield. Kingler, use Bubble Beam. A Kingler with the sheer force ability? The Academy certainly had a wide variety of Pokémon. But Johan's strategy this time was entirely different, so when Isaiah gave her command, he already had his instructions in place. Haunter, hide in its shadow. As Kingler spat out bubbles, Haunter had already reappeared behind it. At close range, Haunter unleashed a clear smog, enveloping Kingler in toxic fumes. It had no chance to escape. A sickly purple glow spread across Kingler's body, indicating its poisoned state. Finish it with Hex. The same move to close the battle once more. It wasn't that Johan didn't want to use other moves. It's just that with Haunter mastering paralysis, poison, confusion, sleep, and flinch-inducing techniques, there wasn't a move more suitable than Hex. Caw-caw. Haunter stood triumphantly atop the unconscious Kingler, sticking out its tongue. Do you know the power of an ambush from behind? Boom. The number on the screen jumped from 1 to 2. The repeated noise drew even more attention. Caw-caw. I'll take on 10 of them. Chapter 67, Who else wants some? Steven, you're here too. Around the tower climb zone, more and more people gathered. Initially, they were merely onlookers, but as time passed, their reactions shifted from casual curiosity to shock, then to stunned silence. Roxanne, dressed in a maid outfit, and Flannery, in a hip-hop outfit, squeezed through the crowd and found Steven standing at the front. What's happening here? Flannery asked, looking around. Her gaze swept over the scene, taking note of the surprised expressions on the faces around her and the change of the number on the wall from 7 to 8. Finally, she focused on Johan and Haunter in the center of the stage. Professor Johan's ghastly, evolved. Roxanne said in surprise. With his arms crossed and his chin resting on his fingers, Steven smiled slightly. He wasn't all that surprised. In his understanding, Professor Johan's tactical prowess was unmatched. Neither Lance nor the Masked Royal could match Johan's abilities. And tower climbing was an event that truly tested a trainer's strategic thinking, judging the situation, managing the Pokémon's status, and achieving the most with the least effort. This suited Johan perfectly. Moreover, Haunter's evolution meant its strength had significantly increased. Steven's lack of surprise didn't mean others shared his sentiment. 8. Professor Johan has taken out 8 in a row. Flannery blurted out. To be more precise, Johan and Haunter had consecutively defeated 8 Pokémon together. Granted, these 8 Pokémon were all part of the Academy's training team and not perfectly synchronized with Isaiah's commands, but they were far from weak. Isaiah herself was known for being adept at leading Pokémon battles using random choices. On the battlefield, Johan looked at Haunter, who was laughing triumphantly, and asked. Haunter, how are you holding up? Oh. The Alolan Vulpix in Johan's arms also glanced over with concern. Caw-caw. Haunter licked its claws with confidence. This is my hunting hour. Ready or not, I'll keep going. Haunter's stamina seemed fine, and Johan could see from his visual interface that Haunter's overall condition wasn't bad. What Johan was really asking was whether Haunter had had enough fun. But clearly, Haunter wasn't satisfied yet. However, the Pokémon Isaiah sent out were getting stronger with each round. Caw-caw. Bring on the next one. 9th Pokémon, Isaiah called out, holding a Pokeball. Despite being on the losing end, Isaiah showed no signs of frustration. As the overseer of the tower climb zone, she understood the importance of keeping her cool to ensure fairness. To be honest, she was also curious about how far Johan and Haunter could go. She could sense that while Haunter hadn't sustained any major injuries, the continuous use of moves and abilities had to be wearing on its stamina. Well, sort of. Haunter occasionally pulled a toxic orb from its mouth and licked it like a snack, as if tricking itself into feeling better. Go, Hypno. The next Pokémon that emerged from the flash of red light was a humanoid Pokémon with golden fur, a white ruff around its neck, and a small pendulum in its hand. Suri. A psychic type and a master of hypnosis. Hypno. Upon entering the field, Hypno's eyes glowed with a deep blue hue, and it locked its gaze onto Haunter. Caw. Haunter immediately folded its arms defensively and shivered in horror. Professor, there's a perv on the loose. It seemed to say. It felt like it was being completely seen through. Forewarn ability, hey. Johan narrowed his eyes. So, which move will you predict? Normally, Forewarn identifies the move with the highest base power. But in reality, it likely focuses on the move most threatening to Hypno. At this moment, Hypno was confused. The move it identified as the greatest threat was Lick. Isaiah was momentarily taken aback. However, the battle couldn't pause for surprises. After quickly recovering her composure, Isaiah called out. Hypno, use hypnosis. Suri. Hypno's narrow eyes glinted slyly as it gently swayed its pendulum, sending ripples of hypnotic energy outward. Haunter, hypnosis, Johan commanded in a calm tone. Haunter let out a sinister chuckle and waved its hands as its eyes began to glow. This was the secret code between Johan and Haunter. When Johan said use hypnosis, Haunter would use the traditional move, hypnosis. But when Johan said just hypnosis, caw, challenging a hypnosis specialist at their own game. Many spectators were baffled by Johan's choice. Only Steven, who had witnessed Johan and Haunter's hypnotic prowess, kept a serious expression, waiting for the outcome. Isaiah didn't understand Johan's reasoning, but soon, she sensed something unusual. Hey? Under her astonished gaze, Hypno's body wobbled slightly. Thud. It collapsed to the ground. Whoa! The crowd collectively gasped, expressions of disbelief on their faces. What just happened? A Hypno, a Pokémon specialized in hypnosis, had been outmatched in its own domain by Haunter. If they hadn't seen Hypno fall with their own eyes and witnessed its body twitching, no one would have believed what they saw. Caw. Haunter yawned and patted its mouth, a tear forming at the corner of its eye. Whew, that was close. I almost fell asleep myself. Then, Haunter smirked mischievously as it surveyed Hypno's body, its gaze finally landing on the hypnotic pendulum. Caw. Oh. The Alolan Vulpix's eyes sparkled. Is this the fabled hypnosis technique of the House of Johan? What just happened, Professor Johan? Someone in the audience couldn't hold back their curiosity and asked. Johan gave a straight-faced, confident explanation. Hypno's hypnosis is a wide-area effect, while Haunter's is a direct, focused one. Everyone nodded in understanding. Not. Boom. The number on the wall changed from 8 to 9. 9 down. Isaiah took a deep breath, recalling Hypno and preparing her next Pokémon. Then, the 10th one. A flash of red light was accompanied by a rumbling vibration in the ground. The large, blue-scaled Gyarados stood tall, its eyes wide with fury as it unleashed an ear-splitting roar. Roar. The water/flying-type Pokémon Gyarados. Johan frowned slightly. In front of this massive creature, Haunter seemed quite small. Caw. What are you roaring for? You startled me. Haunter slowly sank into the shadows. Facing such a behemoth head-on would be foolish. Gyarados, use Dragon Dance. Isaiah commanded, initiating with Dragon Dance. Roar. Gyarados reared back, roaring as its power surged, whipping up small whirlwinds around the field with incredible speed. In such a whirlwind of chaos, even approaching Gyarados would be difficult. Toxic. Haunter sneaked up behind the twirling Gyarados and spewed out a glob of sticky purple sludge. Here it comes, Professor Johan's sub-protect toxic strategy. Gyarados, use Aqua Tail and flush Haunter out of the shadows. Crash. Water swirled around Gyarados' tail like a mighty whip as it smashed down at the ground where Haunter's shadow lay. Boom. The ground exploded, water splashing everywhere, and Haunter was forced out, shattering a green protective barrier around it. She must be holding on to outrage to counter hypnosis. Johan thought. Crunch. Seeing Haunter revealed, Gyarados roared menacingly, slamming its tail down and charging at Haunter with terrifying speed. Boom. Its jaws clamped down on an illusion substitute. Isaiah's eyes flashed. Dragon Dance. She had predicted the standard pattern of the sub-protect toxic strategy: protect, don't protect, then protect. But Johan had anticipated her prediction. Haunter, Hex. Sometimes, strategies as simple as sub-protect toxic required flexibility. Following a rigid routine would be akin to throwing the match. It had to be acknowledged that being able to see the opposing Pokémon's full move list and its proficiency level gave Johan a significant advantage. This final move solidified the victory. A few minutes later. Boom. Gyarados' massive form wobbled, then collapsed heavily to the ground. Boom. The number on the wall changed from 9 to 10. Haunter pulled out a pair of sunglasses from nowhere and put them on. It raised its head proudly and scanned the crowd. Kaka. Omega. Who else wants some? Haunter had completed a streak of 10. Chapter 68, A New Patient. Continue. Isaiah glanced at Haunter, who was brimming with excitement, then turned her gaze to Johan. The Academy's tower climbing record was 12 levels. However, in recent years, no one had been able to reach or surpass the 10th level. After all, the strength of the Pokémon sent out was adjusted according to the challenger's Pokémon, and the difficulty steadily increased. Achieving a high level wasn't something that could be done by simply bulldozing through with brute force. Moreover, the stronger the challenger's Pokémon, the harder it was to climb higher. Kaka. Haunter removed its sunglasses and nodded vigorously. Of course, keep going. It wore an expression of "I'm feeling super brave." Not today, Johan replied with a smile, declining the offer. Kaka. Haunter looked at Johan, confused. What about our bond of trust? Johan glanced at Haunter with a hint of amusement. Weren't you just saying you wanted to eat a whole Tauros? Or would you prefer to head over to the Pokémon Center for dinner instead? Oh right. Haunter quickly came to its senses, and in a flash, it zipped back to Johan's side and gave him a solid lick with its tongue. Kaka. Johan still cares about me. Wait, where's my unfinished ice cream? Isaiah and the surrounding students showed a bit of disappointment. They had hoped to witness Johan and Haunter create a new record. But Johan knew that breaking the 12-level record would be tough for Haunter in its current state. While Haunter seemed to breeze through earlier battles, that Hypno, if it had fought under normal conditions, would have given Haunter a significant challenge. And the Gyarados was an even greater threat, forcing Haunter to use its ace strategy, Sub-Protect Toxic. Although Haunter didn't get physically hit, the move substitute was a massive drain on its energy. Plus, Haunter currently lacked any self-recovery moves. With future opponents bound to grow even stronger, continuing the climb might lead to injuries. They had already earned the highest reward, so there was no need to push further. If Haunter could master a move like Dream Eater to sustain itself, it might have been a different story. In any case, quick-moving students had already uploaded videos of Johan and Haunter's 10-win streak to the campus forum. The videos stirred up quite the buzz. Within the walls of Rustboro Academy, an emerging fanbase had even formed without Johan realizing it, a group called the Grain Fan Club. Professor Johan, here's your prize. Isaiah handed over a box with a smile. Inside was a set of elemental gems. Thank you. Kaka. Pokémon Center. Haunter squinted contentedly while receiving a quick recovery treatment from Nurse Joy and her Chansey. Its expression was cheeky enough to make both Nurse Joy and Chansey giggle. Steven and the others didn't follow along this time. Having witnessed Johan and Haunter's impressive streak, they were inspired to dive back into their own battles, ready to beat up some rookies. Johan felt a sense of relief seeing that Steven had been quite busy lately, presumably training hard or preparing for some competition. Opening the prize box, Johan found the elemental gems arranged neatly inside, with only the dragon gem and fairy gem missing. He casually picked up a fire gem. Too bad it's not a fire stone, but it should still be worth quite a bit, right? He thought. If the reward had been a set of evolution stones, the Academy would have probably gone broke. After all, each evolution stone costs millions, and a full set could likely feed Haunter for a long time. Wait a minute. Johan's thoughts came to a halt. Haunter had evolved, which meant its appetite and dietary quality requirements were bound to increase. A wave of pressure washed over Johan once more. He carefully put the gems away and rubbed his temples. I really need to keep earning money to support these two gluttons. Seems like I'll have to speed up my progress on learning how to make poke blocks. In truth, Johan had been learning how to make them for some time, with Daisy's guidance, but he still didn't have a berry blender of his own. Constantly borrowing the school's equipment for practice wasn't a sustainable solution. And berry blenders weren't exactly cheap, definitely pricier than a coffee machine. If only there were more wealthy clients like that Evie Eats Cabbage lady. Johan sighed inwardly. Professor Johan, it's about time. Caca. Hunter got up and stretched, clearly enjoying the massage. It hadn't been injured, so all it needed was a simple recovery session, which didn't take long at all. Thanking Nurse Joy, Johan resumed exploring the academy grounds with Hunter and Alolan Vulpix. Hunter put its armor back on, and after showing off with Alolan Vulpix over their giant ice cream sundae, it all ended with click. Johan took a picture and uploaded it to his online profile, captioning it, Autumn Ice Treats. As Johan gained some notoriety online, he occasionally posted about daily life or shared tips about Pokémon. However, he rarely replied to comments, as he was swamped with questions from the online psychological consultation room. Later, Johan took Hunter and Alolan Vulpix out for Toro's barbecue. Then, they enjoyed a Cantonian-style massage at the Macamp Massage Parlor. They stopped at the Smeargle Photography Studio for some commemorative photos. Lastly, they watched an EV performance at the EV Performance Club, wrapping up the busy evening. Overall, this Academy festival had been a lot of fun for them. When they got home, Hunter skillfully pulled out its phone and began watching the still ongoing By Barrel Adventures series with Alolan Vulpix. Johan was pretty sure this show had no end in sight. A series with each episode being a standalone story. How could it possibly conclude? Meanwhile, Johan dealt with the soreness in his back, still bruised from the Macamp massage. He added nutrients to the Pokémon egg incubator while browsing the latest news. Something interesting caught his eye. Lance vs Lorelei, Dragons vs Ice Showdown. The headline detailed the showdown between Lance and Lorelei, even mentioning a Lapras vs Dragonite battle. The result ended with a forced 1-for-1 between the two Pokémon, almost a mirror of Johan's earlier battle with Professor Kukui. Man, Lance's Blaze Charizard is kinda broken, he can even one-shot a thick fat dugong. As he was reading, a friend request notification popped up on his phone. Forever 18, what should I do if my Pokémon is too self-absorbed? Forever 18? Johan raised an eyebrow. Anyone using a name like Forever 18 was almost certainly past that age. That was Johan's life experience. However, the person's question did seem related to Pokémon psychology, so he accepted the request. Grain in the field, could you describe the details? After all, confidence isn't necessarily a bad thing. Forever 18, what if they feel like they'll die if they don't look in the mirror every day, that kind of confidence? Johan ran his hand over his forehead. That felt like a personal attack. The person then sent a photo. Chapter 69, Vulpix's rival. Smoochum, the Kiss Pokémon, is of the Ice and Psychic types. It resembles a small girl with golden hair, pink skin, large eyes, and its signature thick lips. Smoochum is naturally curious, and its lips are very sensitive. When it encounters something unfamiliar, it often uses its lips to touch and understand it first. Its lips are also used to remember things it likes and dislikes. To keep its lips moisturized, wild Smoochum regularly use tree sap as a lip balm. It's not surprising for a Smoochum to constantly check its lips, even after taking a fall. So, its fixation with mirrors isn't unusual. But if it truly feels like it would die without a mirror, that's no longer confidence, it's vanity. This wasn't strictly a psychological issue. It's somewhat similar to Evie Eats Cabbage's Phoebus. But while that Phoebus was excessively self-conscious, this Forever 18 Smoochum is excessively vain. After giving it some thought, Johan offered his advice. Grain in the field, my suggestion is to intervene externally while also redirecting its focus, coupled with some hypnotic guidance. Forever 18, what specific method? Grain in the field, for example, you could hide all the mirrors. Or, you could try taking away its mirror while it's using it and offer it something like a poke block to distract it. Forever 18, one moment. It wasn't long before the person sent over a video clip. In the video, Smoochum was happily looking in the mirror, when suddenly, a pale hand snatched it away. In the next instant, Smoochum burst into tears. The tears formed a small puddle on the ground, and Smoochum simply used the puddle as a mirror instead. As for the offered poke block, it didn't even spare a glance at it. Johan. He retracted his earlier judgment. This was indeed a psychological issue. Forever 18, so, that's the situation. Johan felt a slight headache coming on. If a Pokémon was overly self-conscious, it could be helped by steadily boosting its confidence. But if a Pokémon was overly confident to the point of vanity, it couldn't be cured with a heavy-handed approach. Otherwise, it could backfire and lead to the opposite extreme, causing the Pokémon to spiral into deep self-doubt, which would be much harder to fix. Otherwise, simply showing Smoochum what it would look like after evolution could suffice. There was only one solution left. Johan sighed. He glanced at Alolan Vulpix, who was happily watching TV alongside Haunter. Well, you probably won't meet it anyway, he thought. He then sent over a picture of Alolan Vulpix sitting in an ice cream cup from the recent Academy Festival. Forever 18, so cute. Message retracted. Johan raised an eyebrow and pretended not to see that. Grain in the field, show it this, and let me know its reaction. Soon after, a new photo arrived. Smoochum was frozen in place, holding the tablet with a stunned expression. Johan let out a sigh of relief. Thankfully, Alolan Vulpix's cuteness worked like a charm. Forever 18, it looks a bit lost. Grain in the field, are you a trainer? Forever 18, yes. Grain in the field, then tell it that Alolan Vulpix trains hard, and that a Pokémon who trains is the most beautiful. Forever 18, I'll try. Ding ding. Another picture arrived. This time, Smoochum was earnestly lifting a pair of tiny dumbbells. It seemed to be working, at least a little. Grain in the field, this is just the first step. Keep a close eye on Smoochum's condition, and remember to praise it with words like strong, diligent, and hardworking are what make a Pokémon truly beautiful. If there's any more trouble, feel free to reach out. Confidence is a good thing, but if Smoochum becomes too fixated on its appearance, it could lead to a significant drop in self-esteem once it evolves. Of course, it's possible that even after evolving, it could remain confident in its appearance but in a more delusional way. That's why it was necessary to shift its focus early on. Johan specifically asked if they were a trainer to gauge the best direction for this shift. If they only saw Smoochum as a pet, the focus wouldn't have been as effective. Forever 18, thank you. Sigh of relief emoji. Grain in the field, you're welcome. After that, Johan answered a few more messages. He set the incubator back in place, took a quick shower, and prepared to go to bed with Alolan Vulpix. Lately, he hadn't needed to help with sleep as much. Well, it's not like I can freeload every day. Sylph Academy, Johto. Hat, little Smoochum working out? Is the sun rising in the west tomorrow? Karen pushed open the door and found Smoochum diligently lifting its small dumbbells, making little grunting noises. She looked utterly surprised. Lorelei adjusted her glasses and explained what she had consulted Johan about online earlier. Oh? Seems like our senior Johan really knows his stuff. They had felt a sense of familiarity with Johan, only to later discover that he had also attended Sylph Academy, even though they weren't in the same department. Technically, he was their senior. Karen, how do you think I should thank him? Lorelei asked. Karen understood this wasn't just about the Smoochum matter. Lorelei had also gained insights from the parish song strategy. Just pay him, I guess. Karen shrugged. I heard our senior Johan used to work multiple part-time jobs. Lorelei frowned. It wasn't that she thought paying money was crude. She was just worried that giving him money might hurt his pride. You're overthinking things, Karen said, rolling her eyes. Then, give him some training insights. He has an Alolan Vulpix, doesn't he? Since you're so good with ice types, give him some advice on raising them as a token of thanks. You think a trainer who can command a Lapras to use parish songs so adeptly needs my ice type insights? Lorelei countered. True. Karen's eyes lit up mischievously. Didn't Lance meet him too? You could always ask Lance. Crack. Lorelei's tablet suddenly displayed a noticeable crack. After the festival, the Academy granted a short holiday break. Early in the morning, poverty drove Johan to wake up bright and early. Upon waking, he saw Haunter on the ceiling, rubbing its sleepy eyes and looking disappointed. Another failed attempt to lick Johan awake. Oh oh oh. Alolan Vulpix stretched lazily, front and back legs extending in a long, luxurious stretch. Today, Johan planned to head to the electronics district, hoping to find a second-hand berry blender. He had already prepared a detailed guide for the outing. However, not long after getting out of bed, he heard a voice from downstairs. "Hello, delivery for you. Please sign here." By the window, a Pidgeotto was preening its feathers while clutching a package. A delivery? Johan was puzzled. Chapter 70, Trickery and the Invitation. Package? Caca. Haunter immediately floated over to the window, cupping its hands around its mouth like a megaphone and shouting at the delivery person below, almost giving the poor deliveryman a heart attack. With Pidgeotto watching nervously, the package was handed over. When Johan saw the sender's name, he smiled. Lance. He recalled that last time, when Drake sent a package, it arrived via Dragonite. But this time, Lance's package came through a Pidgeotto, even though it belonged to the delivery person. Somehow, Johan felt like this was a subtle omen of something. Caca. Before the package was even opened, Haunter curiously stuck its head inside. Johan. Upon opening it, Johan found a trademark, technical machine, and an invitation letter inside. He remembered that when the video of his battle with Lance had gone viral, Lance had mentioned compensating him with an item or a trademark. Nasty plot. Seeing the move inscribed in the trademark, Johan's eyes lit up. Nasty plot, sharply boosts the user's special attack. This trademark isn't cheap. Lance really went all out, or could it have been given by Agatha? Nasty plot is like Swords Dance, except it boosts special attack instead of physical attack. Moves that significantly boost stats like these are often more expensive than most high-power moves. Of course, they're also harder to learn. But, both Haunter and Vulpix can learn Nasty Plot. This is what pleased Johan the most. Haunter is primarily a special attacker, and Vulpix's special attack stat is also relatively stronger than its physical attack. It's like getting two moves for the price of one. Absolute profit. Haunter, this challenging task is up to you. Johan handed the trademark to Haunter with a serious expression and instructed it to learn the move together with Vulpix. Caca. Haunter tilted its head. You're supposed to be naturally gifted, right? A move like this shouldn't be a problem for you, Johan said with a look of suspicion. Haunter immediately straightened up and pounded its chest in a show of confidence. Caca. Pfft, easy. Just watch me. Taking the trademark, Haunter turned away with slumped shoulders and sighed. Maintaining this genius persona is exhausting. Why did I ever pretend to be one? Oh oh oh. Vulpix tilted its head adorably, watching Haunter with wide eyes. Seeing Vulpix's innocent gaze, Haunter's spirits lifted. It floated down next to Vulpix and took a deep breath. All right, let's do this. Johan chuckled softly. This wasn't exactly him pressuring Haunter, it was more like Haunter had dug its own hole and Johan was just going along with it. He turned his attention to the invitation. When he opened it, he was surprised to find a ticket inside. A VIP ticket for the youth exhibition match. Johan couldn't help but be amused. Well, at least it's not an invitation to participate. In the Pokémon world, there are countless tournaments due to the prominence of Pokémon battles, and most of them are quite popular. From the Grand All-League Master Tournament to small-town baby cups, each has its own audience. Competitions can generally be divided into three types: exhibition matches, standard battles, and free-for-all matches. Among them, free-for-all matches are slowly phasing out as time goes on. Standard battles are the mainstream nowadays. For instance, the World Championships, Masters Points tournaments, Gym Leader Challenges, and Specialist battles all fall into this category. As for exhibition matches, as the name suggests, they're organized by inviting well-known competitors to participate. Winning or losing isn't important, the goal is to be entertaining and put on a good show. The matches neither affect scores nor rankings. Since when does Lance participate in exhibition matches? However, when Johan saw the sponsors listed, WoW, Silphco, Devon Corp, Poketime, and the Battle Company, the appearance fees for this must be astronomical. Typically, major companies sponsor exhibition matches to promote their new products. But for so many big corporations to join forces, it was clear that the league was planning something. The venue is Pseudo-Poly's city in Hone. Johan rubbed his chin, his mind spinning with several speculations. First, the league might be planning to formally introduce Pokémon contests to the stage. Second, his mind kept flashing back to an old, vague memory of plan involving capturing Rayquaza. Forget it, it's not really my business anyway. Johan placed the invitation on his shelf. Whether or not he'd attend depended on his schedule. After packing up his things, Johan called Haunter and Vulpix, and they left the house. They took a taxi to the largest electronics market in Rustboro City. The enormous shopping center housed every piece of equipment available in the Pokémon world, from phones, navigational devices, and Poketime watches to berry blenders and more. Inside, aside from the wide variety of merchandise, there were also electric-type Pokémon everywhere. There were Plusle and Minun running in hamster-like wheels, Illichid twirling their wired arms like power cords, and even an Ampharos holding a tub of popcorn, fixated on a TV drama. "Caw-caw!" Haunter exclaimed. It spotted a cute Piku darting by and became excited. "Oh! Vulpix turned in the direction Haunter pointed, but the golden little creature had already disappeared. Johan led them to a specialized shop for berry blenders. Despite having done some research beforehand, seeing the price tags in person made him grimace. Most were tens of thousands of dollars at the minimum. "Hello, sir. How may I assist you today?" A saleswoman greeted him with a professional smile. "I'm looking for a second-hand berry blender," Johan replied. Of course. The saleswoman didn't show any displeasure at his request for a second-hand machine. In fact, customers coming in to find second-hand blenders were quite common. "Please follow me." She led Johan to a storage room filled with various models of berry blenders, some visibly older and others relatively newer, with a wide range of prices. "If you don't mind me asking, are you a trainer?" she inquired. Sort of," Johan responded. "In that case, you might be interested in this." She handed him a flyer from a nearby shelf. "Caw-caw!" Haunter took the flyer and handed it to Johan, peeking over his shoulder to read along. "Sponsored by Rustboro Electronics Mall, the Illichid Cup Trainer Tournament. The prize is..." Click. Suddenly, the lights flickered and went out. "Caw-caw! A power outage?" But the saleswoman seemed unfazed. She called out, "Ampharos, if you would, please." "Bay." With a soft hum and a red glow from its tail, Ampharos generated electricity, and the store's lights quickly came back on. Johan noticed that other stores were also quickly restoring power using their own electric-type Pokémon. So, the stores keep electric Pokémon for power outages? But the real question was, how does a major commercial district like Rustboro Mall lose power in the first place? Chapter 71, Fulner. Why does an electronics mall have power outages? Johan couldn't help but ask. Well. The saleswoman sighed, casually waving her hand as if she had grown accustomed to it. "This has been going on for quite a while. The power goes out every so often, and eventually, we all just started bringing our electric-type Pokémon here to the mall." "Has Officer Jenny looked into it?" "Officer Jenny is investigating, but it's not something that can be solved in a day or two." Boom! Before she could finish speaking, there was a loud bang outside, accompanied by the faint sight of flames. The sudden noise startled the saleswoman, and the Ampharos generating electricity inside the store also flinched in fright. "Caw-caw!" Haunter floated in front of Johan, and in his arms, Vulpix trembled, grabbing tightly onto Johan's clothes. "Does this kind of thing happen regularly too?" Johan pointed towards the flames. The saleswoman swallowed nervously, losing her previous composure. Her voice faltered, "And not usually, no. This is the first time." Boom! Another explosion echoed. The entire electronics mall faintly shook, and the floor beneath them seemed to tremble slightly. That was enough to snap the store employees and customers into action, as they began to rush outside in a panic. The saleswoman, her Ampharos, and Johan joined the escaping crowd. Fortunately, the explosion occurred outside the mall and didn't cause severe damage, but it did create quite a bit of fear. As Johan led Haunter and Vulpix out of the mall, he noticed that Officer Jenny and the Rustboro City Police were already on the scene, working to evacuate the area, manage traffic, and cordon off the explosion site. "It's all right," Johan reassured Vulpix, gently stroking its back. "Oh. Vulpix whimpered softly, but it was braver than before. "Mr. Johan." Officer Jenny spotted Johan in the crowd, and her eyes brightened. "Officer Jenny." Johan approached, knowing he couldn't just ignore the greeting. He was also curious about what was going on, so he asked. Officer Jenny had a serious expression. We're not entirely sure about the exact cause, but we suspect it might be related to the frequent power outages at the electronics mall. We actually brought in an expert today to try and figure out the cause of the power outages. But just as he arrived, this explosion happened. Johan nodded in understanding. No wonder Officer Jenny's team had arrived so quickly. It wasn't just because they were nearby. An expert? Watson from Mowgli City. If it's about electricity and circuitry, no one in Hone could be more knowledgeable than Watson. It's caused by electrical current interference. A voice interrupted their conversation. Turning, Johan saw a young man with golden hair wearing a blue jacket. On his shoulder was a Pikachu, and the man himself seemed somewhat lethargic. Minato Namikaze. Johan's mind jumped, but he quickly corrected himself. No, Fulner. This was Fulner, the gym leader from Sunny Shore City in Sinnoh. Johan was genuinely surprised to run into Fulner here in Rustboro City, Hone. Kaka. Seeing the Pikachu on Fulner's shoulder, Haunter's eyes gleamed. It's Pikachu. Hehe, a real live Pikachu. Sensing Haunter's intense stare, Fulner's Pikachu tensed up. Tiny arcs of electricity danced across its cheeks in response. Pikachu. What are you planning? Johan quickly pulled Haunter back behind him. At this point, Johan seriously considered cutting Haunter off from watching those idol shows. Being a fan comes at a high cost. Isn't Vulpix cute enough? Thankfully, Officer Jenny began to introduce them to each other. Allow me to introduce. Fulner, this is Mr. Johan, a Pokémon psychologist. Fulner's eyes lingered on Johan for a moment. That name sounds vaguely familiar, Fulner thought. And this is Mr. Fulner, the gym leader from Sunny Shore City in Sinnoh. Originally, Officer Jenny's team had planned to reach out to Watson from Mowgli City, but when they couldn't get a hold of him, they ended up contacting Fulner, who happened to be in Mowgli City. After learning of the situation, Fulner agreed to come and help out. Johan suddenly remembered, Watson was busy with the modernization of New Mowgli, wasn't he? Watson was working on modernizing New Mowgli, and for some of the changes, he had consulted with Fulner. After all, as the lightning of Sunny Shore, Fulner was likely involved in the full-scale electrification of Sunny Shore City as well. After brief introductions, Officer Jenny turned to Fulner. Mr. Fulner, you mentioned that the explosion was caused by electrical current interference. Yes, Fulner replied, sounding a bit drained. However, when discussing anything related to electricity and technology, he seemed to regain some energy. I took a quick look. The explosion came from one of the circuit boxes in the area, and there are clear signs of electrical current interference. As he spoke, he furrowed his brow. Rustboro City's electrical grid isn't that old, and the established circuits shouldn't suddenly fail like this. Furthermore, the conflicting electrical currents seemed more like those produced by electric-type Pokémon. Electric-type Pokémon. Officer Jenny repeated in surprise. Fulner nodded. He then began explaining in technical terms about using electric Pokémon for generating and conducting electricity. Neither Officer Jenny nor Johan fully understood everything. In summary, regular Pokémon wouldn't be able to release such a large amount of electricity all at once. After all, there are so many electric-type Pokémon in the world. If any random one could wreck a city's power grid, things would be in chaos. That's why urban circuits and circuit boxes are specially treated and shouldn't be damaged so easily. Of course, electric-type Pokémon like Electivire, which can supply an entire building's electricity for a year, aren't part of that consideration. Moreover, for an Electabuzz to evolve into Electivire, it needs an Electivirizer and a trade evolution to trigger the transformation. So far, there haven't been any cases of wild Electivire. What if an electric Pokémon was storing electricity for days or even longer? Johan asked. Fulner looked thoughtful. In that case, it could be possible. However, Pokémon with that kind of storage capacity are quite rare. Johan and Officer Jenny exchanged glances. They shared the same suspicion. A rampaging electric-type Pokémon. However, they couldn't be sure yet. If it were a rampaging Pokémon, it would probably have caused a bigger scene by now. For now, let's restore power here, Johan suggested, and Officer Jenny agreed. She couldn't help but think to herself if Ash were here, he could at least act as a resistor. This will take some time, Fulner said, retrieving equipment from Officer Jenny's police car. He and Pikachu then headed towards the circuit box where the explosion had been. Watching Fulner's back, Johan rubbed his chin. Has Fulner already grown tired of battles? Chapter 72, Pikachu's Request. Nearing midday, outside the electronics mall, in a nearby restaurant. If there's nothing else, I'll be taking my leave, the restaurant owner said, rubbing his hands nervously and forcing a smile. Officer Jenny nodded. Thank you. Bang. Before she could finish speaking, the restaurant owner had already slid the door shut and made a quick exit. Although Fulner was already fixing the power box, no one knew if another explosion might occur or how powerful it might be. If not for Officer Jenny's request, the owner would have been long gone. Vulpix, would you mind? Johan asked, smiling as he handed a cup to the Pokémon. Oh. With a gentle breath from the little fox, the drink instantly turned ice cold. Great job! Johan praised, lightly patting its head. Oh. Vulpix let out a soft, pleased cry, its 6 tails swaying gently, clearly enjoying the compliment. Seeing this, Officer Jenny and the nearby officers began placing their own cups in front of the little fox. Oh. Vulpix hesitated and moved closer to Johan, seeking comfort. Helping others is a joy, Johan encouraged with a smile. After a brief moment of hesitation, Vulpix stepped forward and blew on each cup, turning every drink into a chilled delight. Logically, I get it, but it's just so cute. Thank you, little Vulpix. You're amazing. Hearing all the praise, Vulpix ducked its head shyly, but its tails wagged even more vigorously. Mr. Johan, Vulpix is getting more lively by the day, Officer Jenny noted with a smile. Johan nodded warmly. As he made regular visits to the Rustboro police station, Officer Jenny had witnessed the gradual change in Vulpix over time. For Vulpix, learning to control its cold breath and turn drinks into iced ones was not just training its power but also its confidence, helping it face more unfamiliar people and bask in well-deserved praise. Meanwhile, Fulner's Pikachu held a plug in its paws, its cheeks sparking gently to keep the rice cooker running. Haunter floated over stealthily, offering a mango berry. Caw, hungry. Pikachu glanced at the berry and turned its head aside. Pika, you shouldn't eat food from strangers. Caw. Really? Haunter took out some poke blocks. Pika. Unless you can't resist. Pikachu grabbed the poke block from Haunter and gobbled it down in one bite. Pikachu. Haunter chuckled mischievously. It had learned a thing or two about winning others over with food from Johan. With the ice broken, Haunter felt more confident continuing the conversation. Caw. Pika. Caw. Pika. For Pokémon, beyond discussing their daily meals, the most significant topic was often their trainers. Haunter, of course, couldn't stop singing Johan's praises, talking about his top-notch skills in psychology. He was one of a kind. Well, except for those odd browsing histories that showed up on his phone now and then. Pikachu wasn't one to be outdone. It declared that Fulner was the best trainer ever, great at battles and an amazing inventor. But even Pikachu admitted it didn't understand everything that showed up on his devices sometimes. As the conversation progressed, Pikachu's ears drooped. Over the past few years, Fulner's enthusiasm for battling had waned. No, it wasn't just waning, he seemed to have developed an aversion to it. For Pikachu, a Pokémon that loved battling, this was tough to adjust to. Caw, that's a problem that needs fixing. Haunter rubbed its chin thoughtfully. Pika? A problem? How do we fix it? Hearing the word problem made Pikachu nervous. Haunter turned to glance at Johan. Pikachu followed its gaze. Him? Haunter gave a sly grin and patted Pikachu on the shoulder reassuringly. Caw, don't worry. Friend discount. Swish. The sliding door opened, and Fulner, hands in his pockets, walked in carrying his tools. Pika. Pikachu jumped up onto his shoulder. Mr. Fulner. Officer Jenny asked as she stood up. Fulner raised an eyebrow and spoke lazily, it's stable for now, but the converter is missing a part. You'll need to replace it with a new one later. Understood. Officer Jenny nodded. After they all sat down, with Pikachu's efforts, the rice was finally cooked, and they began to eat. During the meal, Fulner spoke up again. It's likely the work of an electric-type Pokémon. I found bite marks on some of the wires. That's what we suspected, Officer Jenny said, sneaking a glance at Johan. She added, I've already informed my colleagues back at the station, and they're searching the area. Fulner simply nodded and continued eating. Caw. After the meal, Haunter discreetly tugged on Johan's sleeve and led him aside to explain what had transpired with Pikachu. You're serious? Caw. You didn't make any weird requests, like licking it. I have to remind you, Fulner's Pikachu is male. Caw. Number. Do I look like that kind of ghost? Haunter seemed genuinely offended. Johan glanced over at Fulner, meeting Pikachu's gaze. It blinked at him and Haunter with a knowing look. Johan sighed, feeling a headache coming on. He's a Pokémon psychologist, not a psychologist for humans. How can you compare a person's complex mind to a Pokémon's simple one? And yet, why was a Pokémon seeking psychological help for its own trainer? More importantly, why was this client brought in by his own Pokémon? Johan decided to just let things unfold naturally. We're almost there. Officer Jenny parked the car near a public park. They noticed an open manhole cover by the roadside, with burn marks surrounding it. Pikachu, sitting on Fulner's shoulder, perked up. It looked toward a wooded area in the park and let out a warning cry. Electricity crackled faintly across its cheeks. Suddenly, bzzzt. Amidst a harsh buzzing sound, a bolt of golden electricity shot out from the woods. Without hesitation, Fulner tossed out a pokeball. In a flash of red light, a Luxray, with a body covered in black and blue fur resembling that of a full-grown lion, appeared in front of the incoming lightning bolt. Luxray, use Thunder Fang. Fulner commanded. Boom. In an instant, the electric energy exploded, scattering currents that seared a nearby tree, leaving charred marks. Awoo. Luxray assumed an aggressive stance, its fur bristling with electricity. Fulner frowned. He couldn't see their opponent, but Luxray, with its X-ray vision, had already locked onto its target. After a moment's hesitation, Fulner gave the command, Luxray, use Thunderbolt. Awoo. Electricity surged around Luxray's body, and a bright golden arc shot toward the trees. Yet surprisingly, there was no reaction, as if the attack had vanished into thin air. Furrowing his brows deeper, Fulner wasn't satisfied with the result. Pikachu, Luxray, use Thunderbolt again. Pikachu leapt from his shoulder. Pikachu! Awoo! Two bolts of lightning, like twin golden serpents, struck into the trees with astonishing speed. But once again, there was no response at all. What was going on? Even if the opponent was strong, there should have been some reaction. Meanwhile, in Johan's field of vision, a Pokédex entry had appeared, revealing the opponent's identity. His expression became slightly strange, and a serious look appeared in his eyes. It seemed like this incident might be connected to Vulpix as well. Because the opponent turned out to be a Vikavolt with 4 Charjabug. Johan stepped forward, surprising Fulner. I'll take care of this. Chapter 73, Vikavolt and Charjabug. Haunter. Caw. Haunter chuckled mischievously as it silently faded into the shadows. The dense forest, with its many patches of darkness, provided plenty of places for it to move freely. Boom! Suddenly, amidst an eruption of electricity, a Pokémon, resembling a stag beetle with a pair of massive mandibles proportionate to its body, flew out of the dense foliage. Its wings, thin and transparent like those of a cicada, buzzed as it skillfully navigated through the forest. A Vikavolt! Fulner and Officer Jenny were both caught off guard at the sight of this Pokémon. Isn't that an Alolan Pokémon? Jenny muttered. As they watched, Vikavolt's abdomen began to glow with a golden current, which quickly gathered between its large mandibles and turned into a powerful stream of electricity, aimed right at Haunter hiding within the forest. Caw. Startled, Haunter dived back into the shadows of the trees. Boom! The powerful electric blast struck the ground, creating a sizable crater and leaving nearby tree trunks and leaves charred from the scorching electricity. This Vikavolt seems to be larger than most, remarked Fulner with a serious expression. Being an expert in electric-type Pokémon, he could gauge the power behind Vikavolt's previous discharge attack. Is it frenzied? Murmured Officer Jenny. Fulner glanced over with a puzzled expression. Frenzied? Not entirely, Johan interjected, shaking his head without elaborating for Fulner. Instead, he pointed to Vikavolt's legs and asked, "Did you see what it's carrying?" Charjabug. Following Johan's gaze as the golden sparks faded, Fulner's eyes widened in realization. 4 of them. Charjabug, an electric and bug-type Pokémon, looks like a small green rectangle. On closer inspection, one can see that it actually has jointed legs, tiny mandibles, and beady eyes. Charjabug is an apt name because it essentially acts as a mobile battery capable of storing and providing electricity for other Pokémon like Vikavolt. The occasional blackouts at the electronics mall, as well as Luxray and Pikachu's ineffective attacks earlier, were likely the result of these Charjabug. In reality, Vikavolt is the evolved form of Charjabug. Many wild Vikavolt carry at least one Charjabug with them, both for recharging and to protect the weaker Pokémon. But this Vikavolt had 4 Charjabug. This wasn't just a matter of having more power. It was due to Charjabug's ability battery, which increases the power of a partner's special moves by 1.3 times. With 4 Charjabug. Even if it wasn't clear whether the effects of battery could stack, it was obvious that this Vikavolt not only had ample power reserves but was also a force of destruction. "They're not behaving normally," Fulner said, his voice heavy with concern. Being an expert on electric Pokémon, he could sense that something was off with both Vikavolt and the Charjabug. "Is this the frenzy you were talking about?" he asked, recalling what Officer Jenny had mentioned earlier. At the same time, Haunter and Vikavolt's battle was already underway. Despite having the support of 4 Charjabug, and possessing high special attack power by nature, Vikavolt's weaknesses were quite apparent. It lacked speed. While Vikavolt seemed agile in the forest, its speed was still a major shortcoming, especially now that it was burdened by 4 Charjabug. "Haunter, use Toxic." Johan's calm voice carried into the forest. "Caw-caw." Moving from shadow to shadow, Haunter suddenly appeared behind Vikavolt, letting out a mischievous laugh before spewing a sticky, deep purple substance onto the larger insect. Bzzz. Vikavolt's wings began to hum rapidly as electricity poured from the Charjabug into its body, enveloping it in a golden aura. In the next moment, crackle! The air erupted as electricity, like waves, spread violently outward from Vikavolt. Johan's brows furrowed. He called out, "Dodge, Haunter! Then use hypnosis." Caw-caw. Frightened by the overwhelming display of electricity, Haunter dove behind a nearby tree. The wild electrical outburst didn't just damage the trees, it even sparked small fires. Will Vikavolt even be susceptible to hypnosis in its current state? That charge of electricity, even if it doesn't create an official electric terrain, seems to be producing a similar effect. Fulner muttered, puzzled. But Officer Jenny reassured him, "Mr. Johan's hypnosis is different." "Different? Is that so?" Pikachu's sensitive ears picked up on Alolan Vulpix's soft murmur. "It's Johan's special hypnosis." Caw-caw. Haunter emerged from the shadows again, this time directly in front of Vikavolt, with a menacing grin on its face. It released its grip, allowing a small hypnosis ring to drop from its paw. Johan, Officer Jenny, and Fulner all stared in bewilderment. As the hypnosis ring swung back and forth, Haunter's eyes gleamed with a red glow, and invisible waves of psychic energy radiated outwards. Vikavolt's body began to flicker like a faulty light. Thunk! One of the Charjabug fell off its legs. Soon after, the other 3 Charjabug followed suit, dropping to the ground one by one. Without the extra power supply, Vikavolt's golden glow dimmed significantly. Hex! Haunter took advantage of Vikavolt's confusion, thrusting its hands forward as dark energy surged from its claws, burrowing into Vikavolt's body. Chkay! The sharp pain snapped Vikavolt out of its stupor, but with the potent toxic already taking effect, it quickly began to feel weak. Still, it fired off a desperate thunderbolt. But it struck Haunter's protect instead. Use hypnosis again. With the Charjabug removed, Vikavolt couldn't maintain the pseudo-electric field effect. Its reduced strength and dwindling stamina made it vulnerable. Caw-caw. Haunter continued to sway its hypnosis ring, and when Vikavolt's gaze met its own, a wave of drowsiness crashed through the larger insect's mind. Its wing movements slowed, and the flickering electric currents gradually faded. In the end, Vikavolt wobbled before collapsing heavily onto the ground. Seeing this, Officer Jenny gestured to her officers, and they quickly moved in to put out the fires, capture the Pokémon, and secure the area. Caw-caw. Haunter floated out from the woods, patting its chest in a show of mock relief. That was terrifying for a ghost. I remember now, Fulner suddenly spoke up, breaking the silence. He was looking at Johan with a glint of recognition in his eyes. You're the Mr. Johan that Aaron mentioned, the one who taught him the toxic stall strategy and defeated Lance. Aaron? Learning toxic stall? Johan was momentarily taken aback as the image of Aaron, a fiery and passionate trainer, came to mind. Why would he want to learn toxic stall when he's got the strongest friendship combo? Chapter 74, A Genius at Making Poke Blocks? Flint was one of Fulner's closest friends, specializing in training fire-type Pokémon. He's also destined to be one of the Elite Four members in the Sinnoh region, with his signature Pokémon being an Infernape. He's the quintessential emotion-based trainer, an example of those classic commands that the original author researched, like stand up, or hang in there, or quick, dodge it. The kind of emotional coaching that tends to spur Pokémon into action. It's essentially like Ash's style in Sinnoh. Trainers of this kind, once they ignite, especially when Infernape's Blaze ability activates, can nearly defeat even the likes of Cynthia's team, requiring her Garchomp to step in and barely secure a victory. For such trainers, learning a toxic stall strategy would be akin to dropping gold to pick up bronze. It would be like Johan teaching Steven tactics for Skarmory, but not showing Lance sophisticated strategies because it simply doesn't suit their styles. It's not that Steven lacks a close bond with his Pokémon, but rather, each trainer has their own personality. Steven can occasionally burn with intensity, but it's not his primary mode. On the other hand, Lance's Pokémon, in essence, wouldn't suit such sophisticated strategies. If Lance could just fully grasp his Viridian Force, that would be more than sophisticated enough. In Pokémon Adventures, we see how Lance, the Dragon-type champion, ended up losing to Green's Rattata and Caterpie due to the power of the Viridian Force. That's a testament to its value. Next time we're back at the Academy, return it. Johan scolded Haunter off to the side. The Hypnosis ring isn't like the teeth of Pokémon like Seavipar or Golbat that grow back once pulled. Caw. Haunter drooped its head, still toying with the Hypnosis ring. It found the thing quite handy. Seeing Haunter like this, Johan sighed internally. It's never easy. Mr. Johan, Officer Jenny approached with a serious expression. Haunter, take Vulpix and go play over there, Johan instructed, knowing what Officer Jenny was about to discuss but not forgetting the last time with the Academy's Passimian incident. He warned, don't cause trouble. Caw. Haunter, still mourning the loss of its Hypnosis ring, nodded absent-mindedly. Once the two Pokémon moved a bit further away, Officer Jenny spoke up. About the matter you asked me to investigate regarding Alolan Pokémon, there was a lead initially, but now it seems like it needs to be merged with the Pokémon Frenzy incident case. The Vikavolt and the 4 Charjabug did show signs of losing control or going berserk, but they were somewhat different from the earlier Pokémon Johan had encountered. Their loss of control wasn't as severe. Johan speculated that it was probably due to the shared burden among the 5 Pokémon. So? Johan asked. You were right about it involving Pokémon poachers and smuggling, Officer Jenny revealed. Johan frowned at this news. Pokémon poachers are ruthless individuals who capture and sell Pokémon indiscriminately. One poacher he particularly recalled was Hunter J. It was during an encounter with a poacher that Flint and Fulner went from being rivals to best friends, teaming up to fend off the poacher, only to get beaten up in the process, and that's how they formed a bond. Now, with this connection to Pokémon poachers, alongside the frenzy incidents, it seemed this wasn't a matter for just a mere Academy teacher to handle alone. Still, poachers who catch Pokémon from Alola and smuggle them to the Hoenn region aren't exactly common, are they? Johan inquired. Officer Jenny nodded. Indeed. Plus, the unprovoked frenzies among Pokémon are the 2 major angles we're focusing on. If there's anything I can do to help, just let me know, Johan stated earnestly. Since this involved Vulpix, he had no choice but to get involved. Of course. We may need your help once these Vikavolt and Charjabug regain consciousness. Meanwhile, Fulner, with Pikachu and Luxray by his side, stood with his hands in his pockets, watching Johan and Officer Jenny converse. He could tell that Haunter wasn't necessarily stronger than Luxray or Pikachu, possibly even weaker. The reason Luxray's and Pikachu's attacks failed was purely due to Vikavolt siphoning off the electricity through its 4 Charjabug batteries. But this wasn't of much concern to Fulner, the issue was resolved, and that was what mattered. He recalled Luxray and turned to leave. Pikachu softly whimpered on his shoulder, a hint of sadness in its eyes. Johan had noticed Fulner's departure but didn't stop him. 1. There wasn't a good reason to. 2. He couldn't think of an immediate solution to Fulner's problem. Fulner's growing distaste for battles stemmed from constantly having to face trainers challenging the SUNY Shore Gym, all of whom were overconfident in their words but lacking in skill. Honestly, if you constantly had to deal with keyboard warriors in person, anyone would get fed up, let alone Fulner, who aspired to challenge the Elite Four. Over time, the frustration from dealing with these keyboard warriors evolved into a frustration with battles altogether. Eventually, he simply began handing out gym badges without battles. He figured it was better to spend his time working on engineering projects. In the original story, it took both Flint and Ash, two equally emotional trainers, to rekindle Fulner's fighting spirit, and Ash's use of Pikachu resonated with Fulner and brought him back to the thrill of battling. But where was Johan going to find two passionate trainers? And preferably ones who owned Pikachu? It was quite a headache for him. Unless I just hit him hard enough to force a recovery through sheer adversity, Johan thought grimly. Please leave it here. Thank you very much. A Machoke carried a large box into Johan's house, and with Johan and Haunter's guidance, set it down in a cleared area. After gently placing the box down, the Machoke even helped unwrap the packaging, revealing a professional-grade berry blender machine. Thanks for your help, Johan said, handing over 2 poke blocks. Choke. Machoke grunted, shaking its head to indicate that it couldn't accept food from customers due to professional standards. It then pulled out a card reader from the belt around its waist. Cash or card? Johan chuckled awkwardly and pulled out his card. The Machoke completed the transaction skillfully, even tidying up the discarded cardboard and taking the trash away. Haunter looked on with a twitching brow. See? That's professionalism. But soon enough, all attention returned to the shiny, human-sized berry blender. Originally, Johan had planned to purchase a second-hand one, but due to the Vikavolt incident, the electronics mall's owner gave him and Fulner discount vouchers as thanks. Fulner tossed his away, uninterested in mass-market machinery. Pikachu picked it up and handed it to Haunter. Haunter then passed it to Johan, calling it compensation. Johan couldn't refuse, as Fulner was already gone. With gritted teeth, Johan ended up buying a brand new berry blender. Oh. Vulpix sat in front of the massive blender, mouth agape, astonished at the big contraption. Johan read the manual while taking out a selection of pre-prepared berries. Operating the berry blender wasn't too difficult. The actual process of making poke blocks wasn't complicated either. What mattered most was the correct balance of ingredients and blending time. It would be challenging to figure this out from scratch, but if given a recipe, it would be much easier. Soon enough, the big guy began to hum and blend smoothly, impressing Johan with its high-end quality and minimal noise, ensuring it wouldn't disturb the neighbors. After roughly half an hour, brightly colored, crystal-like poke blocks began to emerge. These were peanut poke blocks, made primarily from peanut berries. Their main effect was to replenish a Pokémon's stamina while providing essential nutrients for daily needs. Haunter impatiently wrapped its tongue around one and popped it into its mouth, closing its eyes to savor the taste. Vulpix, too, cautiously picked up a warm poke block and took a small nibble. The 2 Pokémon exchanged glances. Caw. Oh. Is it really that good? Seeing their expressions, Johan was genuinely surprised at his first attempt. Could I be a natural at making poke blocks? He casually picked one up and tossed it into his mouth. A second later, his face flushed red. Pfft. Shortly after, both Haunter and Vulpix spit theirs out as well. The room was filled with the sounds of blat, blat, blat. Johan felt utterly defeated inside. It's over. Vulpix has been completely led astray by Haunter. You two troublemakers. Caw. Oh. For a moment, the room was filled with laughter and joy. Chapter 75, Does my Pokémon have a problem? Night had fallen. Johan sat cross-legged in front of the berry blender, holding a notebook in his hand. Beside him were several plates of poke blocks, though none of them seemed quite right in terms of taste. Logically, there shouldn't be anything too wrong, Johan murmured. Except for the blender speed being a bit hard to control. But a minor difference like that shouldn't matter, right? After all, the berry blender in reality wasn't as difficult to operate as the one in the games. The more expensive the machine, the more automated it became. The real key lay in the recipe. But he had followed the recipes given by his teacher, Ms. Ayako, who specialized in nurturing Pokémon. Let's try one more time. Refusing to admit defeat, Johan once again put some peanut berries and additional ingredients into the blender. Seeing this, Haunter silently hid in the ceiling, while Vulpix scurried under the coffee table. They had tried so many times already, and although the taste was improving each time, it was still. The gentle hum of the machine soon signaled the completion of another batch of Poke Blocks. Haunter, Vulpix, Johan called out, holding a tray of the newly made Poke Blocks. He glanced around his small home. Come on, I can see you two hiding, he chuckled. Caw. Oh. One from above and one from below. The two Pokémon reluctantly emerged from their hiding places. Try it. I think I've got the hang of it this time, Johan said seriously. The two Pokémon hesitantly glanced at the new Poke Blocks. Indeed, they did look a bit more crystalline than before. Before they could react, Johan handed them each a piece. Caw. Haunter looked at the Poke Block in its hand, swallowing nervously. Why aren't you eating it? I'm human. I can't just take your food, Johan replied confidently. But you ate one just now. Come on, just try it. He urged. Haunter and Vulpix exchanged a glance. The two of them closed their eyes, looking as if they were about to face their doom, making Johan's eye twitch in frustration. Finally, they both took a bite. Slowly. Caw. Equals. Oh, asterisk. What kind of reaction is that? Johan asked suspiciously. The next moment, Haunter leaped toward him, and Vulpix jumped into his lap. Wait. Let me try it. Johan exclaimed, realizing something was up. He quickly picked up a piece and tossed it into his mouth. As he bit down, the Poke Block burst open in his mouth like a sweet, tangy jelly with a subtle aftertaste. It was like a taste of that nostalgic summer. In the end, Johan, Haunter, and Vulpix sat around the coffee table, with one last Poke Block in the tray between them. Caw. Haunter cast Johan a side glance. Didn't you say you wouldn't steal our food? Now you want this last one? What kind of trainer are you? Johan didn't change his expression. As a trainer, isn't it normal to taste test a Poke Block? I've eaten plenty of citrus berries, haven't I? Oh. Vulpix let out a small whimper. What did you all see in that moment? Caw. A.B. doof. Johan noticed the puzzled expressions on Haunter and Vulpix's faces and cleared his throat. Never mind. You wouldn't know them. They both looked at Vulpix. The little Pokémon slowly lowered its head. Oh. I saw my mother. Hearing this, both Johan and Haunter went silent. They pushed the tray toward Vulpix. Yum. Without hesitation, Vulpix gobbled it up, flashing a cunning smile. But I have you guys now, Vulpix thought, feeling warm inside. The small, sly fox was finally showing its mischievous side, thanks to Johan and Haunter's influence. Now that we've succeeded, Johan stood up, let's make another batch. If one batch was successful, that meant the recipe wasn't the issue. It was probably just that the timing of his preparations was slightly off, causing the taste to vary significantly. That's a relief. Although this venture had cost a lot of money up front, if he could master the art of making Poke Blocks, the expenses of feeding Haunter and Vulpix in the future would be much more manageable. Not to mention, there was still that unhatched Pokémon egg. If it ended up being a big eater like Aaron or Larvitar, Johan's entire savings might not be enough to keep it fed. If only it were a Caterpie. Actually, a Grubbin wouldn't be bad either. Once it evolves into Charjabug, I'd never have to pay an electricity bill again. And if it's a Moltank, I'd never have to worry about them being malnourished. Caw. On the sofa, Haunter was intensely studying the trademark for Nasty Plot, with a notebook beside it. It was a set of notes Johan had copied from Champion Agatha's Essence of Fear book, containing tips on mastering Nasty Plot. Oh. Vulpix was perched on the back of the sofa, its tiny face showing the same seriousness and focus. The two Pokémon exchanged occasional whispers. If someone weren't listening carefully, they might have thought they were actually discussing strategies. Caw. What do you think breakfast will be tomorrow? Oh, it won't be scrambled eggs. We had those today. Caw, do you think it might be Lapunny meat pies and EV mashed potatoes? It feels like it's been a while since we had those. Oh. I like EV mashed potatoes. Meanwhile, Johan was absorbed in a different matter, focused on making poke blocks. He had captured Vulpix some time ago. Despite being timid and lacking confidence due to its past, the little Pokémon was much stronger than it realized and possessed a hidden resilience. It never skipped training. If Vulpix wanted to pursue battles, Johan was more than happy to nurture it in that direction. However, this presented a problem: how should Vulpix approach its first battle? The first battle needed to boost its confidence but shouldn't be too easy, or it might feel like its opponent was holding back. Beep beep. Johan's phone buzzed. He picked it up, only to realize he had grabbed Haunter's phone by mistake. Since both phones were bought using reimbursement claims, they were nearly identical. The only way to tell them apart was by checking which one was covered in Haunter's saliva. Haunter's phone was filled with saved dramas, especially the popular adventures of Bidoof, which even Vulpix had become addicted to. Wait. Bidoof's incubation and egg groups. Haunter's egg groups. You little rascal. Johan shot a look at Haunter. The clueless Haunter smiled back, baring its fangs. Caw. Seriously? You're already thinking this far ahead? Johan face-palmed. Is something wrong with my Pokémon? He muttered. After some consideration, he decided to respect Haunter's privacy. I'll just pretend I didn't see that. At least its preferences are normal. Feeling mentally drained, Johan picked up his own phone. It was a message from the long-absent Evie Eats Cabbage. Evie Eats Cabbage, finally finished exams. Slowpoke exhausted face.jpg. Chapter 76, Spiritomb. Evie Eats Cabbage, you really seem to know quite a lot about Sinnoh's history? After chatting for a bit, Johan learned that Evie Eats Cabbage had been preparing for an exam in Sinnoh historical studies over the past few days. The two continued talking about Sinnoh's history, and Evie Eats Cabbage gradually realized that Johan was surprisingly knowledgeable about it. This was thanks to Johan's predecessor's excellent academic performance and Johan's own dedication as a Pokémon enthusiast. Forget Sinnoh's history, he could probably dig up the history of Hisui too. Grain in the field, I know a bit here and there. Who knows, maybe I could even help you with your answers. Evie Eats Cabbage, but my exam is a bit different from a normal one. Grain in the field, don't tell me you have to explore some ruins instead of taking a written exam? Johan quipped. Evie Eats Cabbage, how did you know? Surprised Pikachu face.jpg. Wait, seriously? Soon, Evie Eats Cabbage sent over a photo. The picture showed a dimly lit stone chamber, with walls engraved with ancient text and barely discernible patterns. At the center of the photo was a peculiar altar, not too big or small. On the altar rested a peculiar, grayish stone with a distinct crack down the middle. From this crack, a swirl of purple and green gas seemed to be seeping out. That stone, is it a keystone? And the gas coming from the crack, that was the actual body of Spiritomb. Spiritomb, the forbidden Pokémon, a ghost/dark type formed by the aggregation of 108 malevolent spirits, born from sinister thoughts and dark intentions. Evie Eats Cabbage, you recognized it immediately. Wait a minute. Johan paused as he processed the sight of the Spiritomb. Evie Eats Cabbage, wealthy, known for Phoebus, Spiritomb, Sinnoh history, archaeology. All these clues together pointed to one name that flashed in Johan's mind. Cynthia. The future Sinnoh champion. Johan gulped nervously. Grain in the field, you wouldn't happen to have a Garchomp too, would you? Far away in Sinnoh, Cynthia sat on a bench in her garden, glancing at her Garchomp not far away. Garchomp tilted its head in confusion. Cynthia chuckled softly and shook her head. Evie Eats Cabbage, no, why do you ask? No Garchomp? Johan let out a sigh of relief. Just as he thought, it wasn't Cynthia. After all, Cynthia's signature Pokémon was the Garchomp she had grown up with. Grain in the field, nothing. Just wondering. Evie Eats Cabbage, if it's not too much trouble, I'd like to ask you to take a look at Spiritomb. Take a look at Spiritomb? Johan felt a twitch at the corner of his mouth. This was a Pokémon made up of 108 spirits. Even if some of those spirits were fused together, it still had the potential for some serious multiple personality issues. However, Johan couldn't help but feel a rising thrill of curiosity. His inner Pokémon psychologist was eager to explore this rare case. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, almost as significant as studying Mewtwo. But there were some issues. Grain in the field, it's not impossible, but unlike Phoebe's, Spiritomb isn't something I can assess through photos alone. I'd at least need videos that show its distinct traits or any problematic behaviors. Evie eats cabbage, that's true. But there's no rush. I only just caught it, and it's not exactly calm. In Sinnoh, in Professor Rowan's garden in Sandgem Town, a timid and terrified Spiritomb found itself surrounded by Lucario, Garchomp, Roserade, Gastrodon, and Eevee. Hiss! Stay back! I am really fierce and dangerous, Spiritomb muttered nervously. Meanwhile, your account received a deposit of 100,000 Poke Dollars. Remaining balance, 278,923 Poke Dollars. Johan received a notification from his bank. Eevee eats cabbage, here's a prepayment for your consultation. Look at this. This is what a real patron looks like. Eevee eats cabbage, it's been a while since we did a calming session. Phoebus is really looking forward to it. Ah, right. A patron and a debtor. After all, she still hadn't used up all the monthly package sleep therapy sessions from before. The debt just kept growing. Grain in the field, hold on, I'll finish up this batch of poke blocks and then I'll come over. However, a thought suddenly struck Johan. Steven's shiny Metang hadn't evolved into Metagross yet, so what if Cynthia's Garchomp hadn't fully evolved either? It wasn't impossible, right? Grain in the field, pardon me for asking, but do you have a gay bite or gibble? Eevee eats cabbage, smiling emoji. Smiling? What did that mean? Could it really be Cynthia? If it was, then maybe Fulner's situation could be saved. The berry blender stopped, snapping Johan back to reality. He quickly collected the freshly made poke blocks. Judging by their color and clarity, this batch seemed to be of even higher quality than the last. Satisfied, he patted the big guy proudly. You're going to help me keep my family fed from now on, he remarked. He picked up his phone and headed toward the balcony. Passing by Haunter and Vulpix, who were busy with their studies, Johan suddenly had an idea and flipped through his phone's photo gallery. Haunter, what do you think of this? Displayed on the phone screen was a picture of Spiritomb. Both belonged to the amorphous egg group, after all. Come to think of it, there were plenty of strategies to develop for Spiritomb. Its ghost/dark typing made it virtually without weaknesses except against fairy-type moves. Caca. Sigma, LLL. Haunter shrieked in fright. A ghost. Oh. Vulpix couldn't help but burst out laughing. But Haunter, you're also a ghost. Caca. Oh, right. The following morning, Johan woke up to his familiar sensations of paralysis and chill, though the paralysis seemed stronger than usual today. He had a hunch Haunter was getting revenge for yesterday's prank with the Spiritomb photo. To be fair, Johan was more than used to it by now. Oh. Yawning, Vulpix wrapped its tails around the vibrating phone and brought it to Johan. He took the phone with some surprise and saw that Steven was calling. He pressed the answer button. Click. Steven? What's going on so early? Johan, I might need you to come over, Steven's voice sounded unusually grave. Hearing this, Johan immediately perked up, realizing this wasn't a trivial matter. Where? East outskirts, by the Verdant Tunnel construction site. You and Lance were there last time, remember? The Verdant Tunnel. Johan frowned at the mention. He recalled that the construction of the Verdant Tunnel had severely damaged the ecosystem in certain areas of the Verdant Hills, affecting the habitat of many wild Pokémon. I might need. Before he could finish, Johan glanced at his phone. Johan, there's already a helicopter waiting for you on the rooftop. Chapter 77, Vulpix, that's it? Caw. Haunter stuck its tongue out and pressed its face against the helicopter window, squishing its entire face flat. It almost covered the entire window. Vulpix had to peer through the small gap Haunter left to catch a glimpse of the lush, green mountains below. It was the first time it had seen the world from this perspective. Seeing that Haunter wasn't attempting to float outside the helicopter, Johan felt relieved. At least this time it wouldn't be like the bus ride incident, where Haunter almost got blown away. Soon, the helicopter landed on an open field. As Johan stepped out, he saw Steven waiting there with his shiny Metang and Laren. Johan. What happened? Johan asked. He distinctly remembered that the construction on the Verdant Tunnel had been halted by Joseph. The Verdant Tunnel project was a major undertaking by Devon Corporation, aiming to connect Rustboro City and Verdant Turf Town. If the tunnel were completed, it would significantly benefit the development of Verdant Turf Town and the residents of both cities. However, the environmental damage and impact on local wild Pokémon were substantial. As Steven explained, Johan learned that although Devon Corporation had initially stopped the project and began withdrawing equipment, the Verdant Tunnel was a highly sought-after project. Even if Devon didn't continue, other companies would eagerly take over, potentially causing even more environmental damage. Thus, Devon Corporation decided to continue the project, but this time they aimed to minimize environmental damage as much as possible and even restore some of the affected areas at their own expense. So, the feared disturbance among wild Pokémon has already begun? Johan asked. Yes. Steven nodded, his face filled with concern. He led Johan toward the construction site, where a group of wild Pokémon had taken over the area. If it were any other company, they might have already used forceful measures to clear out the Pokémon. Worse yet, they might even have contacted Pokémon hunters to capture and sell off these wild Pokémon to avoid future complications. Considering Johan's experience as a Pokémon psychologist who could calm even rampaging Pokémon, Steven hoped he could find a way to pacify these wild Pokémon. Otherwise, switching contractors could lead to even greater harm to the Pokémon. Johan sighed. Pacifying these wild Pokémon might not be too difficult, but once one group is calmed, another would inevitably take its place as long as the construction continued. This was bound to be a recurring problem. Steven. Is it possible that Devon could establish an ecological zone and relocate these wild Pokémon there? Johan suggested. Steven gave Johan a surprised look. That's exactly what my father is planning. Hearing this, Johan felt a wave of understanding wash over him. Of course, Joseph Stone wasn't a self-made billionaire for nothing, he wouldn't overlook such a solution. As for the money, for Devon Corporation, that wasn't a major concern. Although it meant relocating these wild Pokémon to a new habitat, it was far better than having them fight for survival with others in unfamiliar territories. However, before that, pacifying them remains the priority, Steven noted. Only by calming them could they communicate and attempt to relocate them to an ecological zone. Johan and Steven approached, and Johan quickly spotted the leader of the wild Pokémon, a Breloom, standing with its arms crossed, eyes narrowed, and exuding an imposing aura. Breloom, a grass/fighting type Pokémon, had deceptively short arms that could extend with incredible speed during attacks, rivaling the best boxers in skill. The Shroomish, Gloom, Oddish, Jumpluff, and Paras standing behind it all seemed to follow Breloom's lead. Johan was quite familiar with Breloom. Especially with its poison heal ability combined with a toxic orb, it was a rather meta strategy when first discovered. Of course, its Spore move and Technician ability were also formidable. Bree. Noticing Johan and Steven approaching, Breloom took a battle stance, ready to strike if they got any closer. Haunter, try to communicate. Caw 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 caw. Haunter floated forward with a mischievous grin, licking its lips. Breloom shuddered involuntarily. Bree. Bree. What are you planning? Don't come any closer. Caw 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 caw, hee hee, let's talk. What would it take for you to stop fighting? Bree. Defeat me in battle. In the wild, Pokémon often settled disputes over territory with their fists. Caw caw. Caw caw. Alright, alright. Bree. Not you. Go back. Breloom's gaze shifted past Haunter, who made it uneasy. It ignored the hefty Metang and Laren, those two were clearly strong. Nor did it consider the muscular Makoks and Gurdurs, which were clearly too much. But then Breloom's eyes lit up as it locked onto its target. Bree. You. Oh. The Vulpix in Johan's arms blinked in confusion, looking at the Breloom pointing at it. Breloom scratched its head, looking a bit embarrassed. It didn't enjoy challenging weaker opponents. But for the sake of its companions, it had to choose the opponent it had the most confidence in defeating. It was for the greater good. Caw caw. Haunter frowned. Who are you choosing? But before Haunter could interject, Johan agreed. All right. Even as Steven shot him a questioning look, Johan calmly explained, if we can't respect even their first request, how are we supposed to negotiate with them? He turned to Vulpix with a gentle smile. Remember what we practiced. Oh. Vulpix responded nervously. Don't worry. Just listen to my commands, And don't stress, Johan assured it. If we lose, we'll have Haunter put them all to sleep and take them away. Steven, Haunter, and Breloom. Oh. Encouraged by Johan's look, Vulpix's expression turned serious, and it nodded firmly. With a soft patter, Vulpix hopped out of Johan's arms. The sky began to sprinkle light snow, and the temperature gradually dropped. Is that the snow warning ability? Steven murmured. Breloom, which had initially underestimated Vulpix, immediately felt the chill. It began to realize that perhaps this little Pokémon wouldn't be such an easy opponent. Vulpix, use Charm. Oh. Standing on its hind legs, Vulpix playfully fluttered its paws and batted its eyes at Breloom. Bree. Breloom froze, a blush spreading across its cheeks, nearly causing it to lose the will to fight. Meanwhile, several of the wild Pokémon behind it had their eyes turned into hearts. Icy Wind, Johan instructed calmly, fully aware of the effectiveness of Vulpix's cuteness. Oh. Taking advantage of Breloom's daze, Vulpix opened its mouth, releasing a gust of cold air mixed with the falling snowflakes. In an instant, Breloom was enveloped in the frigid air, its body frosting over slightly. For a grass type like Breloom, ice type moves were a considerable threat. However, the biting cold was enough to snap Breloom out of Vulpix's cuteness. Its eyes sharpened in determination. With a sudden leap, Breloom dodged to the side, avoiding the icy stream, and its fists glowed with a white light. In one swift movement, Breloom lunged forward, aiming a punch straight at Vulpix. The sound of the punch slicing through the air rapidly approached Vulpix's ears. At the last moment, Breloom changed its technique, dodging again to avoid a potential counter, and its fist began to glow with dark red energy. A force palm attack. Don't panic. Use confusion. Johan's timely command cut through Vulpix's panic. Vulpix's eyes shimmered with a faint glow. Oh. Just as Breloom's punch was inches away, a burst of psychic energy exploded from Vulpix. Bang! The powerful telekinetic force lifted Breloom off its feet. Haunter shrank back slightly. It was a scene all too familiar. Psychic-type moves were just as threatening to Breloom's fighting-type nature. Even so, Breloom struggled to its feet, preparing for another attack. Bang! Another blast of confusion knocked Breloom down. Vulpix maintained its stern expression. It remembered what Haunter had taught it wasn't over until the opponent was down. Then came a third hit, followed by a fourth. Vulpix seemed to enter a trance. Bang! Bang! Yikes, Haunter gasped. See? I told you not to choose Vulpix, right? Vulpix, that's enough. Johan called out quickly. Seeing the shivering Breloom, still under the relentless psychic pressure, Johan intervened. Oh. Vulpix tilted its head in confusion. That's it. Chapter 78, Losing My Golden Sponsor? Well done, Vulpix. Johan picked up the little Vulpix and praised it. It turned out that, while Vulpix was timid, it was also cautious and wouldn't easily fall into the same trap as Haunter, who tended to become overly confident after a quick victory. But Johan gave a sympathetic look to the unconscious Breloom. Maybe it was a little too cautious. He took out an energy cube and slipped it into Vulpix's mouth. Oh. With the entire energy cube stuffed in its mouth, Vulpix's cheeks puffed up, and its eyes closed happily. Who knew if it was more thrilled by Johan's praise or by the taste of the energy cube? Caw. Haunter stuck out its tongue, eyes shining with excitement, beckoning Johan like a hungry puppy, almost turning into a haunt dog. Johan chuckled and tossed an energy cube to Haunter as well. After some thought, he handed out energy cubes to Steven's Metang and Laren, and even to all the nearby wild Pokémon. He wanted to test their reactions. If the response was good, he might even consider selling energy cubes in the future. As it turned out, even Steven's Metang and Laren liked them, let alone the wild Pokémon. Conversations became a lot easier afterward. Johan, did you make all these energy cubes yourself? Steven asked in surprise, noticing how much Metang and Laren enjoyed them. Just experimenting a little. It seems to be going pretty well, Johan replied with a smile. I have a friend who's really good at making energy cubes. I'll introduce you to someday. Oh. Meanwhile, with the help of healing spray, Breloom slowly regained consciousness. Bree. Sigma, LLL. Seeing the seemingly harmless little Vulpix, Breloom jumped back in fear. Oh. Following Johan's hint, Vulpix used Charm again, and Breloom sheepishly crawled back. Caw. Haunter patted Metang on the side, grinning mischievously. See? It could sell Breloom off and it would still thank Vulpix for counting the money. Metang nodded thoughtfully. With Vulpix bridging the gap, communication became much more manageable. Using hypnosis, Johan projected a vision of the future homes the Breloom group could move to, along with the beautiful promises Steven made. Breloom and the other wild Pokémon finally seemed tempted, agreeing to check it out. Johan trusted Steven enough to believe that if Breloom and the other wild Pokémon moved into the Devon Corporation's ecological zone, their lives would improve significantly. Is this one way Pokémon and humans can coexist? Johan wondered. He wasn't sure. He was merely reminded of a long-absent client of his, the Math Magician. Thank you, Johan, Steven said sincerely. Johan waved it off. He wasn't doing this just because of the consultant's salary Devon Corporation paid him or solely for the sake of the wild Pokémon. What about you? Coming here so early to monitor things? Johan teased with a smile. Steven laughed awkwardly. His reaction made Johan understand instantly. Digging for rocks. Whenever my family opened a mine or carried out any excavation, I would always check to see if I could find special stones, Steven explained. His passion for stones was undeniable. But Johan's focus was clearly different from Steven's. Humph. A mine. Every single time. Must be nice to be the ridiculously handsome, competent, and loaded Steven Stone. The only thing Johan could possibly rival him in was looks. Oh, right. I almost forgot. Here, Johan. Steven suddenly remembered something and handed Johan an envelope. What's this? Johan took it and opened it, only to find another invitation inside. Great. It was the same invitation Lance had given him. Well, the event hadn't even started yet, and Johan was already holding 2 VIP passes with private booths. He felt a bit gratified, though. Steven was getting back into matches, even if it was just for a performance event. I heard the league is preparing for a Pokémon World Championship. This exhibition match is meant to promote the Pokémon World Championship Youth Cup. Steven revealed some insider information. The World Championship? Are they planning this already? Johan mused, realizing his previous assumptions were off the mark. Steven invited Johan to go digging for rocks together, but Johan wasn't particularly interested in that, so he politely declined. Initially, he thought he'd wait around for more wild Pokémon to gather, but Steven assured him it was no problem. The helicopter would be on standby for him for the foreseeable future, ready to fly anywhere he needed, anytime. Once again, Johan felt the power of Steven's wealth. Maybe it was time for him to capture a flying-type Pokémon of his own. Lance would probably have some solid advice in that department. He'd ask him when he got the chance. Back home, since the school festival holiday was still ongoing and he didn't have to work, Johan's Pokémon, Haunter and Vulpix, were practicing nasty plot. And since it wasn't mealtime yet, Johan had nothing to do but scroll through his phone. The upcoming exhibition match in Lily Cove City was gaining traction, with many fans cheering on their favorite trainers. After browsing for a bit, Johan checked out Roxanne's fashion show and Karun's new film launch. Just as he was about to switch gears and make some energy cubes, a message came through. Sigh. There's always something to interrupt my blade drawing speed. He opened it to find it was from Evie Eats Cabbage. To be honest, he already had a good guess about Evie Eats Cabbage's identity. There was an 80% chance it was Cynthia. Evie Eats Cabbage, Phoebus is acting a bit strange today. The message was followed by a video. In the clip, the previously dull-eyed and drab-scaled Phoebus was now lively and confident, its scales glimmering faintly in the sunlight. It swam energetically around a small pond, occasionally leaping out of the water and splashing gracefully. Is it about to evolve? Johan wondered. Grain in the field, try putting it back into its previous pond. Cynthia didn't understand why, but she did as suggested. Sinnoh was located north of Hone and Kanto, so the temperature there was relatively cooler. In the lightly yellowed garden, Cynthia returned Phoebus to its old pond. The water-type Pokémon in the pond watched Phoebus's return with expressions of shock. At first glance, Phoebus didn't look much different, but they could all tell there was something undeniably different about it. Phoebus was initially a bit reserved, but sensing the change in how the other Pokémon saw it, it quickly became more active again. Watching the now truly confident Phoebus, Cynthia gently twirled a loose strand of golden hair, a warm smile spreading across her face. A cool breeze blew past, causing her long hair to flutter. Bobo. Phoebus in the pond happened to catch this moment. A look of longing appeared in its eyes. Suddenly, Phoebus's body began to shine with a dazzling white light. Cynthia froze in surprise and quickly opened her phone to snap a picture and send it over. Evie eats cabbage, Phoebus is evolving. Seeing the photo, Johan let out a relieved sigh. Just as he thought. It wasn't for nothing that he had instilled so many stories and teachings into Phoebus, like the ugly duckling, the grey night girl, and the little goth kid who sold matches. But wait. Phoebus evolving meant he might lose his golden sponsor. Well, not entirely. There was still that troublesome spiritomb to handle. Chapter 79, and you still say you're not Cynthia. In the bright sunlight, Phoebus gradually shed its blinding white light as its body elongated into a graceful curve. The once bumpy, dull yellow exterior turned sleek and glossy, and its now revealed red eyes shone with lively vitality. Its tail, covered in light blue scales that resembled a delicate fan, gently splashed the water. The scattered droplets refracted the light, creating a beautiful, colorful mist. Click! Cynthia captured this moment with her phone. Melodic. The tender Pokémon, a pure water type and the evolved form of Phoebus. Known as the most beautiful Pokémon and the living embodiment of the ugly duckling story. Oh! Melodic emitted a melodious, flute-like sound that resonated softly. The sight of Melodic's transformation left all the surrounding Pokémon utterly awestruck. Even Cynthia was momentarily stunned. Phoebus, evolved into Melodic. It wasn't exactly a secret that Phoebus could evolve into Melodic. However, the commonly known method required the use of a prism scale and a trait evolution. Most of the existing Melodic were either wild ones or evolved by those specific conditions. Some trainers who achieved the evolution had no clear explanation for why it worked. Some said it was due to rigorous training, others attributed it to strong bonds, and some couldn't explain it at all. And no one had ever recorded or traced the exact moment and process of this evolution. To be honest, even Cynthia, who had been closely observing Phoebus's progress, couldn't fully understand why it had evolved at this moment. Was it self-confidence? Melodic seemed pleasantly surprised by its transformation, but not entirely caught off guard. It merely felt like the beautiful dreams it had experienced each night had finally manifested in reality. Oh. Melodic approached Cynthia and affectionately rubbed its face against her. Garchomp, Lucario, Eevee, Rose Raid, and the other Pokémon in Cynthia's team gathered around, marveling at Melodic's beauty. Even the previously sullen Spiritomb was left in a daze as it watched Melodic and Cynthia embrace. After reveling in its evolution, Melodic dove into the water and began gracefully swimming, followed by several other water-type Pokémon. Wonderful! Cynthia's eyes curved into crescents as she pressed a finger to her lips and murmured softly. I should get an ice cream to celebrate. Should it be mint vanilla, or strawberry chocolate? Garchomp. Seeing Cynthia entering her ice cream dilemma, Garchomp waved its claws to signal to the other Pokémon. All right, you all can go. She's not making up her mind before sunset. Caca. Oh. Looking at the photo of Melodic on Johan's phone, taken by Cynthia, Haunter, and Vulpix both zoned out. So beautiful. No need to be envious, Johan said, rubbing Vulpix's head. When you evolve someday, you won't lose to it. Oh. Really? Little stars of hope lit up in Vulpix's eyes. It suddenly felt a desire to evolve. Caca. What about me? Haunter patted itself with its claws, eyes wide with anticipation. Johan stared at Haunter for a long time. What a nice day we're having today, he said, turning towards the balcony. Haunter grabbed the table's edge. Caca. Degree. Listening to Haunter's hysterics behind him, Johan winced. Do you not even have a clue about what you'll evolve into? Or are you seriously hoping to evolve into a clefable? Johan took out his phone and uploaded the photos of Melodic's evolution and the pictures Steven had sent of the happy wild Pokémon in the ecological zone. He captioned them with a single line. There is always a beautiful side to humans and Pokémon coexisting, isn't there? In the Sinnoh region. Evolution. Professor Rowan had just returned from his field research and was astonished to see Melodic, listening to Cynthia's brief explanation. Professor Rowan was the leading expert in the Sinnoh region, specializing in Pokémon evolution. His research centered around the theory that evolution could make Pokémon more mature or more complete. He had been in the Kanto region recently, conducting research with Professor Oak, but he returned to Sinnoh after discovering more mysteries worth exploring. However, he still maintained close contact with Professor Oak. Cynthia had started working as his temporary assistant, which was how she came across Johan online. Feeding it energy cubes, poke blocks, and telling bedtime stories. It hardly sounded like meeting any sort of evolution criteria. Professor Rowan knew that Cynthia had sought out a Pokémon psychologist online, trying to help Phoebus become more confident and lively. They had indeed witnessed Phoebus's changes. So, was the key self-confidence? Let's do a check-up on Melodic first, Professor Rowan suggested, putting down his bag and loosening his tie. All right, Cynthia agreed, helping him with the examination. Afterward, all of Melodic's metrics are perfect. Holding the report and watching Melodic play in the pond with the other Pokémon, Professor Rowan couldn't help but sigh in admiration. Cynthia felt both happy and relieved. Compared to those that evolve with a prism scale, naturally evolved Melodic tend to be more mature or perhaps more complete. It's not that using a prism scale is bad, but there are differences, psychological differences. Professor Rowan elaborated. For instance, if Phoebus evolves with a prism scale, it gradually recognizes its own beauty through others' compliments. It realizes, oh, I've become pretty, and it subconsciously attributes some of the credit to the scale and to the evolution, as these are what made it beautiful. On the other hand, a self-evolved Phoebus realizes its beauty even before evolving. After it evolves, it naturally believes that others praising it is only fitting. Cynthia suddenly understood. One type of evolution resulted in a gradual, passive recognition of beauty. The other involved an active, self-driven recognition. The final outcome might seem the same. However, Melodic that evolved with a prism scale required a process of gradually shifting from passive recognition to self-awareness. But for those that self-evolved, this self-awareness was established well before evolution. Thus, Professor Rowan described naturally evolved Melodic as more mature and more complete. This aligned perfectly with his theory. Although this distinction wasn't always apparent in other Melodic, it was particularly pronounced in Cynthia's Melodic. It was genuinely confident from the heart. That made it even more mature and complete than many other naturally evolved Melodic. So, is the evolution condition self-confidence? Professor Rowan muttered. But instilling confidence in Phoebus seemed like a monumental task. Cynthia, could you share this grain in the field's contact information with me? Cynthia hesitated slightly. But in the end, she nodded. Hello, I'm Professor Rowan. When Johan received a call from Professor Rowan, he was a little surprised. But as he listened to Professor Rowan explain the reason for the call, only one thought popped into his head. And you still say you're not Cynthia? Chapter 80, The Daily Life of Outwitting Each Other. Although Johan had confirmed the identity of Evie Eats Cabbage, he was still at a loss on how to address Professor Rowan's questions. The concept of beauty hadn't gained traction yet, and the contest spectaculars weren't popular. Thus, he had no data or concrete examples to support it. But just because Johan didn't have it didn't mean Professor Rowan wouldn't. I wonder if I could trouble you to help Phoebus with sleep assistance again? Professor Rowan asked. Phoebus? Yes, I'm planning to request a batch of Phoebus from the League, probably about 20 to start with. This way, I can avoid any coincidental outliers and gather more accurate data. So this is the kind of treatment a top league professor gets, hey? Even though it's just 20 Phoebus, it includes several, if not more, high-precision instruments. And the key word here is start, indicating more to come. That shouldn't be a problem. I can pre-record the sleep assistance audio, and it should have a similar effect, Johan said. To him, 20 Phoebus seemed like 20 more patients. Besides, if Professor Rowan could confirm the evolution method, it would be a breakthrough for the entire Pokémon world. He couldn't and wouldn't refuse such an opportunity. After discussing the details briefly, Professor Rowan hung up in a hurry. Sandgem Town, Professor Rowan's research lab. After finishing the call with Johan, Professor Rowan casually popped a candy into his mouth and prepared to call the Sinnoh League. Professor. Cynthia's voice interrupted him. Grain in the field isn't your assistant, Cynthia reminded him. Rowan paused for a moment and quickly understood her implication. She meant that Johan wasn't his assistant and technically had no obligation to help him. Even though Johan was polite enough not to mention it, it didn't mean Rowan should take advantage. But Professor Rowan quickly became troubled again. The current quarter's research budget had almost run dry, and the next one wasn't available yet. Never mind. I'll just give him what's left. It wasn't like skipping some candy and sweets would be a big deal. 2 refrigerators full should last a while. He's not an official researcher either, Cynthia added. This brightened Professor Rowan's mood. I'll discuss it with Professor Oak and get it approved. That should just about cover everything. As for any resulting breakthroughs or research papers, there was no need to mention it, Johan's name would be included without a doubt. Oh, by the way. Just as he was about to call Professor Oak, Professor Rowan stopped, remembering something. You'll be going to Lily Cove City for the youth exhibition match soon, right? Cynthia nodded. Yeah. I think so. Your account received 1,200,000 league credits. Remaining balance, 1,478,923 league credits. Hey? Seeing the massive transfer alert, Johan couldn't help but be stunned. Then he saw the apologetic message from Professor Rowan. So, this is payment for the sleep assistance audio. Johan initially thought earning a researcher title and having his name on Rowan's research papers was more than enough. But this. Things have different value depending on who offers them, he mused. He then remembered the audio he had given to Lance earlier, feeling a pang of regret like he had lost $1 million. Next time, I'll make him treat me to a feast. Suddenly, a thought struck Johan. If Professor Rowan's research findings prove conclusive, won't tons of people be lining up to buy my audio? It felt like a revelation. The specifics of increasing beauty hadn't been determined yet, but boosting confidence already had precedent. Wait. Would that make him a CD dealer? Ahem, I'm selling audio, not video, Johan reassured himself. But with this income, getting Vulpix's Ice Stone might not be impossible. Oh. Hearing Johan mutter, Vulpix's ears perked up, and its tail began wagging excitedly. It was curious to know what it might look like when it evolved. Caw. What about me? Haunter impatiently asked again. When can I evolve? Johan's face turned serious as he looked at Haunter in disbelief. You don't know. Caw. Know what? Haunters evolve into Jengar by eating a clefable, Johan said matter-of-factly. Caw. Sigma, LLL. Haunter looked like it had been electrocuted. Vulpix was just as shocked. Johan struggled to hold back a grin but quickly pulled out a photo on his phone. Look at this yourself. Don't they look the same? Haunter grabbed the table's edge. Caw. Degree. Let it all burn. I'm not playing anymore. Pfft. Johan couldn't help but laugh. Don't be so dramatic. I'm just messing with you. But Haunter wouldn't let go of the table. Caw. I'm flipping this table. And nothing's stopping me. Let's go out for a big meal later. Haunter immediately let go of the table. An exclamation mark appeared over its and Vulpix's head simultaneously. Then, under Johan's bewildered gaze, their eyes both darkened with a faint, eerie glow. A vibe of slyness and cunning emanated from them. The move, nasty plot. Johan. They learned it. For the promise of a big meal? Haunter and Vulpix shared a sneaky look. They could see the devious glimmer in each other's eyes. You really think I didn't know you hid the art of fear in the cabinet? Of course, Haunter knew it didn't need to eat a clefable to evolve. Haunter, see? I told you flipping the table would get us a big meal. Vulpix, just one? How about you actually flip it? Haunter? Vulpix, did we just learn a new move? Haunter, easy peasy. Focus on what we're eating next. Watching them subtly communicate, Johan sighed. Ahem. Clearing his throat caught the duo's attention. He put on a disappointed look but spoke in a comforting tone. I thought you'd master it in just a few hours, but I see you're only getting the hang of it now. It's fine, though. You're both doing great. He sighed again while speaking. Haunter and Vulpix exchanged another look. Caw. Bring 10 more TMS, and I'll master them all for you. Oh. 5 is enough for me. Hearing this, Johan's heart nearly leaped out of his chest. He quickly walked away, pretending not to hear them. Is this the daily life of outwitting each other with my 2 genius Pokémon? This is too much.
Additionally, if you would like to request novels and access my Google Drive where I have 200 plus audiobooks, then you can join my Patreon. Link is also provided in the description.
Thanks for listening.